HR. If it wasn't part of the package, no, then no.
It have reached the hour of 5 p.m. I'm calling the April 20th, 2026 Finance Committee Council Workshop to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Committee members Gutierrez-Brayton.
Here.
Vice Chair Bavaro.
Here.
And Chairperson Wright.
Here.
I also want to mention also in attendance are Mayor Zwalin, Vice Mayor Williams, and Council Member Ricky.
Thank you. As a note on agenda, public comment, it will be only in person. Zoom will still be available for viewing and wordy translation. Does anyone wish to speak on any items under public comment? These are items that are not on the finance agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak. You have any cards at all? No cards?
No, Chairperson.
Any public would like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Next on the agenda is new business. I ask that we hold all questions until each department has their presentation. Joe Lopez, our city manager, will present the draft proposed financial year 2026-27 operating and multi-year budget for the City of Modesto. City manager.
Apologies. Can I just acknowledge Chairperson Wright that written communication was received and provided to the committee and council members.
Thank you.
All right, good. Thank you, Chair Wright, and members of the Finance Committee, and Mayor and City Council in attendance. We're pleased to be before you tonight presenting the fiscal year 26-27 budget. This year's budget process is a bit different in that we focus on refining what was presented last year and integrating any modifications from the strategic plan workshop held in February. We are committed to delivering the council's priorities in the upcoming fiscal year. And although the budget was established last year, we have conducted a thorough review and reconciliation of this budget against past expenditures and anticipated future needs, as we have done every other year. In addition, with an ongoing level of uncertainty of an economic landscape, the city continues to be proactive and adapted to effectively managing its budget for sustainable growth and effective risk management. This approach ensures the preservation of providing essential services and creates opportunities for economic development for a thriving Modesto, even in the event of an economic downturn. The city remains committed to building a solid financial foundation, growing at an adequate pace without overextending our resources and maintaining a balanced budget. Thanks to Measure H, the city is still able to make strategic investments in this budget that were not possible several years ago. From improving parks to fixing sidewalks and increased tree trimming, the city is still able to address the years of deferred maintenance and improve the quality of life for our residents. The city continues to remain resilient and to develop forward-thinking strategies that uphold the trust of our community to responsibly allocate their taxpayer dollars in a manner that is transparent, responsive, and effectively meets the essential needs of Modesto residents. I would like to thank our staff who have been instrumental in preparing the proposed budget and their unwavering commitment to building trust through transparency, communication, and quality life services for our residents. And I will now turn it to Steve to give you an overview of the budget.
Good evening, members of the Finance Committee, Council. Steve Christensen, OPMB Director. So I want to start by taking us back to November, January for the Council Retreat. So at the November Council Retreat, we provided kind of an update on the year one implementation of our new 2-year budget process. We talked a little bit about the strategic plan priorities, and we highlighted the first community survey. At the January Council Retreat, we went into a little bit deeper on our update on the budget, where we were at in 25-26, and then we talked a lot more in depth about our strategic plan priorities. So we gave an update to council on the 10 goals and the 45 strategies that are included in the 2-year strategic plan. We noted that of the 45 strategies at that time, only 8 of them were at 30% or less completion. 8 of them were already completed at that time, and then another 29 were at a completion percentage of 30% or greater. So kind of the focus as we go through these department presentations during these next few days, they're really going to be focusing on kind of their update on their budget, but as well going through what their budgets are really doing in the coming year in regards to the strategic plan. So they're going to be focusing on how they're continuing their progress towards meeting those strategic plan goals with this final year of the 2-year budget cycle. Looking at our fiscal year 26-27 general fund draft proposed revenues, you can see here we have increases across the different revenue categories. For property tax, we have increases of about $3.3 million. This is really highlighted by some of the strengths we're seeing in the housing market. So we have some appreciation to our home prices in Modesto, stable growth that we're anticipating in 2026 and 2027, with lower interest rates, bringing more buyers back to the market, and then new development for the housing area to kind of meet that increased demand. We have increases to our sales tax of about $1.6 million, and really that's due to kind of inflation. It's kind of that double-edged sword. So we are seeing inflation, but it is helping our overall sales tax in terms that there are goods that are continue to be kind of staples that consumers need to buy, and because of the cost of those goods are increasing, we are seeing that on the sales tax side. We're also seeing, you've heard me talk about it before, especially in the Finance Committee meetings, about our countywide sales tax pool. We are seeing a slight increase in the proportion that the City of Modesto has in that countywide sales tax pool on our regular sales tax side, on the general fund piece of it. So those two things are kind of combining, and we're seeing some increases there in our sales tax. Even on this, if you remember in the mid-year general fund update report that we provided, we saw increases there to what our proposed revenues were for the current year. UUT, our utility users tax, we're seeing increases there as well. Just the utility rates for things like gas, electricity, and then even our water rates, those are increasing. So we see a benefit to that tax rate in here as well. So we're seeing increases there. For our departmental revenues, just briefly going over those, you see an increase of about $3.9 million. Some of that is due to our fire contracts. Those are going up about $1.7 million year to year. And then we have increases in our departmental revenues across the various departments of about $1.4 million. And those are really due to things like our plan checking fees going up, industrial fire contract, and then some outside service agreements as well. So overall increases to our general fund revenues going from 201 to about 215 million in the proposed draft for fiscal year 26-27. Here you can see our general fund revenue history. Really what we like to show here in 23-24 and beyond, you can see that orange color, that's really showing the gap between our general fund revenues that we receive in the general fund, and then the amount that we're also receiving from the Measure H in terms of the subsidy that goes in to cover our general fund structural deficit. So that little gap there between the blue and the orange, that's our general fund subsidy coming over from Measure H to cover that gap in our funding that we need on the general fund side. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Measure H. On the expense side of things, a lot of these increases that you're seeing year to year are really just from salary and benefit increases, and then from our internal service fund charges going up year to year. Not a lot of increases for programmatic needs. Other than a couple of areas, so you will see in Parks and Recs, departmental budget for general fund, there is slight increases there for programmatic needs, where we have the water park coming online this year, And then we also have some increases in the community economic development for an increased contract for planning services. But there is an offsetting revenue coming in for that as well on the general fund side. Decreases in the auditor, we see a decrease there. We reduced some positions that were in that budget. We have a contract service for that, so those positions were not needed there. That was just causing some unneeded PERS costs because we weren't filling those positions. So we did go ahead and reduce those out of the budget. And then on the second to last line, you see some proposed adjustments. In that line of the 1.84 million, the negative 1.84 million, that's savings. We have a fleet ISF rate reduction of about 520,000, an EBF rate reduction as well of about 1.5 million. What we did this year in the EBF fund in particular, we looked at the fund balances for that fund, the Employee Benefits Fund. It's an ISF. Fund balance had grown there over time, so we did a rate reduction to return some of those fund balances to not only the general fund, but all funds in the city because the fund balance had grown quite a bit. So we want to standardize that fund balance off of one of the recommendations from our audits from the external auditor, from the internal auditors. So we're reducing that fund balance to get it to an appropriate level. We're recommending about 40% there. So we have some rate reduction savings to the general fund in that area. So total expenditures of 215.6 million. So a balanced budget between our revenues and expenditures in those areas. Looking at our historical general fund expenditures, you can see steadily increasing over time. The difference between 25-26 current budget to 26-27 proposed, that's about a 6.4% increase between those 2 years. This is one of the charts that we do also like to show, just showing our variance rates between the years, variance between revenues and expenditures, kind of the historical and then the current year that we're proposing. You can see the big gap there in 24-25. That was caused by, we had our contracts for MCFFA were done after the budget was adopted, so that caused a large gap in reserves that were needed that year. And then there were also some revenue decreases that were seen from what was budgeted in that fiscal year. So we had impacts in sales tax that year, cannabis tax, property tax, business license, mill tax, and utility user tax that caused some of the unassigned reserves to be needed in 24-25. There we go. This chart here is showing our proposed revenues or projected revenues and expenditures going out to 2030, 2031. Really, the illustration here is that our revenues, our expenditures are outpacing the growth of our revenues in future projected years. So really that gap between our revenues and expenditures is growing in future years. So that's something that we need to be aware of. We look at our general fund every year, every fiscal year, and even during the year, we're monitoring those expenses and revenues. But it is just something to be wary of on the general fund side of things as we look at future budgets and as we plan accordingly for future projects, future needs. We want to make sure we're aware of that growing gap in the future years. In 26-27, we have some proposed non-Measure H adjustments. So in the general fund, there are 3 positions that are being proposed as part of the budget. So in community economic development, we have 2 development service technicians for planning and building safety. And then we have 1 employee relations officer. You can see there on the employee relations officer that total amount looks kind of low because there is offsetting revenue for that position to the tune of about 70% of the cost of the position. So that's why you see the lower $48,000 amount for that position. In non-general fund, we have adjustments that are mainly going to public works. So we have some security cameras at the airport, reclassing of 1 tree trimmer position to a senior admin office assistant. This is mainly to address a need for the forestry area to address a large number of Go Modesto, not complaints, Go Modesto inquiries, I'll call them, coming through the application. So they need some administrative assistance to make sure they're addressing all of those in a timely manner. And then the purchase of a truck for solid waste operations crew leader. So that's an equipment purchase at the end there for $60,000. Moving on to Measure H. So we have again, Measure H, some historical references there. We passed it in 2022, the voters did. When we started receiving this funding, initially we had estimates of an annual revenue of about $38 million, $39 million. You can see that our actual estimated annual revenue for 26-27 is about $48.5 million. So quite a bit more than what we had originally anticipated. Total revenues received to date, actually through March of 2026, is $133.9 million. You can see on the chart in the lower right the spending plans that have been adopted throughout the years and how much of that amount has been approved for spending. So $105.4 million. And in the 26-27 draft proposed budget, we're proposing about $7.6 million. This chart is looking at the forecast for Measure H. So again, showing the historical revenues received in the dark blue, and then what we're projecting going forward from 26-27 and beyond. The lighter blue color is showing how much of that revenue is going to the general fund in terms of covering that structural deficit in the general fund. One of the things to point out here is that, again, our revenue estimates are growing. So looking out in the projected years, over the next 5 years, we project about $49.4 million. We're also showing an increase in the estimated budget for the structural deficit, but one of the things I want to point out and that we're really striving to do in the general fund side of things is to keep that constant. We don't want to get to a point where that is growing to impact the ability to fund things out of Measure H. So on the amount that we're covering back to the general fund, we want to reach a point where we keep it at a constant level or a steady level. We don't want to keep growing it to, you can see on this chart going at a projected level in 29-30 to 17.5 million. So we want to get it to a recommended level, and keep it at that flat level. So we want to really look at the general fund, what we can do to mitigate expenses on the general fund side of things so we don't continue to grow the amount that's coming over from Measure H. In terms of the spending plan overview for Measure H for 26-27, on the left side, that shows what our total annual spend is for Measure H in 26-27. So we have the spending plan on new programs of $7.6 million, which on the next slide will show what that is. We have the already approved Measure H spending for the year. So these are things that have already been approved by council that are ongoing expenditures from previous spending plans. We have the general fund budget deficit funding, which is $13.1 million. And then we have the supplement for ARPA loss funding in the general fund, which is another $2 million. So a total Measure H spending of $50.9 million in fiscal year 26-27. On the right, we have a breakdown of the new, we'll call it new spending in 26-27. So for the spending plan of that $7.6 million, there's ongoing funding of $1.6 million, and then one-time funding of $5.9 million for new programs and projects. And then you have the general fund deficit spending and the supplement for the ARPA loss funding for a total of $22.8 million of Measure H spending plan funding in 26-27. So at the end of the day, we're projecting that Measure H will have approximately $23 million at the end of the 26-27 in terms of their fund balance. So a healthy fund balance in Measure H, that's about 46% of the annual revenue received by Measure H, so a pretty healthy fund balance. One of the things that we're working to do right now is to develop what that Measure H fund balance policy is so we can bring that back to council for adoption. So we'll come up with that reserve policy for Measure H, and then also a policy on what we want to cap that general fund budget deficit funding at. So we'll bring those two policies back to council for council to consider for adoption as part of the Measure H fund. Here are the proposed Measure H adjustments for the spending plan. So we have the addition of 2 building inspectors and 1 admin office assistant for the rental housing safety program. This is netting savings because it's taking place of the contract that we had in place for this work. So it's actually creating the positions to do this work within the city. We have the funding for the Modesto Gospel Mission Safe Sleeping Program. We're adding an admin analyst position in CED for an administrative cost center. We're adding the multimedia designer position in communications, and that's going to be a net cost of 0 because we're using some existing funding that was in there for marketing. We have the parks preventative and deferred maintenance projects for $1.6 million. This is for some playground installations. We also have the funding to complete phase 1 of the Awesome Spot playground for $3 million. We have the funding to cover the cost of the buyout option for the 5 engines and 2 fire trucks for the 2016 purchase. So this was a purchase that was done in 2016. It was the lease option buyout for these trucks and engines through the general fund, but this is to actually buy them, so we own them. We have the funding for the fire department for the Merced College paramedic program training, and then funding for the Station 19 cost. And then we have the conversion of a police officer and a police officer recruit to fund the police lieutenant position for the 4th Area Command. And then we have the funding for the operating budget for the water park. So some additional funding there for the water park and the operations and the chemical budget as well. So a total of $7.6 million and the addition of 4 positions. The main thing here is that as we go through these spending plans, and you saw it last year too, is that we're trying to add one-time funding as we go through this, not a lot of additional ongoing funding, because we don't want to stress Measure H fund. So we're really trying to hit a lot of big projects, things that are one-time expenses. So like, again, you can see here adding the funding for Awesome Spot for that $3 million. We have the funding there for the deferred and preventative maintenance. So large dollar amount projects to really make that impact with Measure H funding as we go forward. Now I'm going to turn it over to Casey Culbertson, our budget manager, so she can go over the other major funds.
Hi, good evening. Casey Culbertson, Budget Manager. The other major funds on this chart, what we're showing is as part of the 2-year budget process last year, we brought forth our fiscal year 26-27 draft projected budget. So that's going to be in the orange column. And then the blue column is what we are actually proposing for this year. You'll see for a number of these major funds, they're pretty close as far as what we originally projected last year and where we are proposing the budget. The large increase related to the wastewater of the $4.2 million amount is related to the bonds that were issued in the fall of this year. So at the time when we brought the draft budget, we didn't have those issued. We didn't have that built into the 26-27 projected number. The other thing I want to mention on this slide as well is as part of our, while these expenses are increasing, as part of our city debt coverage ratio to meet a minimum of 1.5 times over, we're actually meeting 2.0 at least in water and our wastewater funds to meet that debt coverage ratio. So increased expenditures, but still meeting those ratios as well. Moving into the full citywide draft budget. So this is going to show you again where we projected last year for the 26-27 draft projected budget. So at that time we had projected a total of $655 million. You'll see then as part of this year's budget, what we are proposing is a total of $674 million, about a $19 million difference. However, I do want to notate that Of that 19 million, 13 million of it is related to, one, the wastewater increase related to those bond issuance, and the other bulk is related to the Measure H spending plan. So as Steve mentioned, we brought forth, our 26, 27 spending plan items. Those were not part of the projected operating budget, draft budget last year, since those are new items. So that makes up 13 million of the increase. The other increases are mostly related to our PERS, unfunded liability increasing, as well as within our internal service costs, our ISFs, we're seeing an increase in some of our premium payments. So you'll notice in some of those, the liability, the workers' comp, ISF funds, some increases in there. And then as a result of that, a number of the other funds then get the increase since those costs are spread throughout the organization. One last thing I want to mention on it. So overall, while that $19 million is a large difference, the total change from what we brought last year for the projected budget to this year is 3%. If we take out the wastewater amount and that Measure H spending plan, which are new items, we're actually only 1%. So I know on our end, we were really excited to bring forth the 2-year budget process last year and then be only about a 1% difference from what we're presenting this year. Going into the rest of the week then, so we are wrapping up the overview presentation right now, and then we will move into presentations for the charter offices and department presentations. We'll have some special presentations for you all, and then we will end it with some follow-up and the committee recommendation.
Thank you. Does any committee members have any questions? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Slide 12, where you're talking about Measure H sales tax revenue forecast. A slight increase in Measure H sales tax revenue estimates throughout the years. Given that as I highlighted in slide 4, when you articulated the general fund draft proposed revenues, you mentioned that sales tax had an increase of 4.4%. Do you take that percent and determine what the measure of that, how it's going to impact Measure H and its increase or decrease in the proposed budget?
So we look at them separately. So there's both of them are nuanced in terms of how they're calculated, their estimates. They have different factors that go into both. We've talked about it a little bit at different points at times, but for sales tax, it's impacted a lot by the countywide pool and how it works, where our Measure H sales tax really receives all of that revenue coming in, so it's not as impacted by it, and the point of sale all comes to the Measure H, whereas the general fund sales tax is not is more impacted by that because all of it goes to the countywide pool and it's distributed proportionally amongst all the cities in the county. Mm-hmm. So there's some nuances between the two and how they work. So we don't just use a straight percentage for both.
I see. That makes sense now that you mentioned all the moving parts on the original sales tax revenue. So how then do you determine the year-to-year sales tax revenue forecast for Measure H?
So we use we use our sales tax consultants to determine some of the out years and what goes into it. And then we look more on a deeper dive of our local economy and how that's playing out. Because for instance, let's talk about when we had the pandemic years. If we relied just on our sales tax consultants, the estimates would be way off because everyone was predicting doom and gloom and your revenues are going to tank, where Modesto, when the pandemic occurred, was a little bit insulated from that because our local economy is different than the coastal economy or LA or San Francisco. So because our local economy, like when I talked about our sales tax, so inflation, when you hear inflation, you think that's horrible, people are going to stop buying things, but we're noticing with our sales tax, inflation does have an impact, but people are still buying the things that they need to buy on a normal basis. And so our sales tax is seeing a benefit from that because inflation is increasing the cost of goods, but residents are still going out and buying what they need to. So our sales tax isn't seeing that much of a hit. It's actually growing from that.
Okay, thank you. So still on this slide, if you look at the columns, they vary just slightly. For 26, 27 projections, 48 million, then 49, then 50, then 51. In percentages, are those single-digit percent increases?
They are, and a little bit reason for that is because we are seeing somewhat of a slower growth on the Measure H in terms of the percentage. So if you look at even, I don't know, between 24, 25 and 25, 26, you're not seeing massive, 4% increases between the two. And some of that I think has to do with kind of the way it grew so quickly. So that you are seeing a little bit of a tapering off. That's why I say we kind of have to look at each component separately on its own, to where we're not just saying, oh, so our regular general fund sales tax is growing at 3 or 4%. Let's just apply that to Measure H. So we're all looking at how the markets are growing for both.
Okay. My other question has to do on slide 13 with the fund balance for Measure H. And you indicated that it was going to be 22.8 million. Will this fund balance roll over to the following year, or will it be put in reserve, in our reserves, or where will that funding go to?
Yeah, so it's the 23 million on the bullet point. Yeah, so it's going to be unassigned at the end of the year. So it'll stay in there, and then it can roll over into the new year. That's what we're estimating at the end of the fiscal year. After we spend all of that money, the 50.9 million during the year on the left table.
We will have 22.8.
20, or no, the 23 in the bullet point. The 22.8 is just the new spending in the year. But in the first bullet point,
Yeah,
the 23 million, yeah, that's what we're anticipating we'll have unassigned at the end of the year. That will then roll over into the new year.
For Measure H. Okay. That's
That's
it
it?
for right now.
I do have one question. On our rainy day fund, what's our balance right now?
For the general fund?
Yeah, for the general fund.
Yeah, for the general fund, we still have 18.9. I think it's 18.9. I get confused with 18.9, 18.4. It's 18.9 million in emergency reserves.
Is that, and has that grown over the last couple of years, or stayed flat?
It's been steady. We've been keeping a little bit in unassigned reserves, but the emergency reserves we cannot touch. That's council
Right.
has to approve any touching or any use of those funds.
So are we looking at adding to that down the road?
Eventually, yeah, we would like to add funds to those reserves. Yeah.
Where would be the ideal amount to have in there, or what percentage of our general fund should be in there?
So typically, what we try to do with our reserve policy for the general fund, we like to have 2 months of our expenditures, 2 months of our operating expenses in reserves. Right now, that's probably about $26 million. So we're a little bit short of that in terms of our emergency reserves level. But that's what we would strive to get to.
And of course, we would love to continue to add to the emergency reserves, but we start with a structural deficit on the general fund side. So then that makes it difficult for us to add more money into it, which also makes us more conservative on the Measure H side, because you can look at the Measure H reserves as also covering for emergencies as well. And we want to establish a level within Measure H that fund balance will not go below. So you're really going to be trying to look at these two things as combined.
Great, thank you. Nick?
Is there a time where, thank you, on our deficit, is there a projected time where we are going to be whole, balanced, zero?
I mean, that's what we want to strive to get, but it's going to take a lot. One of the things that's really impacting it, and you'll see it in the HR's presentation, but we have our PERS UAL. So we have our PERS UAL that you'll see in the presentation. There's a big slope. I can't remember the year. It's like in 2030, 2035, something like that, where that slope starts to go the cliff and short off like that. So when that starts to happen, then we'll have a better chance at cutting off that structural deficit, because that UAL payment every year is $20+ million that we have to pay out of our general fund. A majority of it comes from our general fund
Does the state of California require us to have a certain percentage in our reserves?
No. It's just a best practice, financial best practice to have a certain level.
Okay, seeing no more questions from the committee, I'll open up to the council. Mayor? I'm sorry.
All right.
I just didn't know if you could see my button.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay. I don't think we have buttons
Oh, well, that's good to know.
today, so we'll raise our hand.
Just throw something at me if it hits me.
Okay, fair enough, sorry.
Okay. So my question is, you mentioned two policies that we'll need to decide on. You said Measure H Reserve Fund, and what was the second one?
So the second one, so we have an amount, you can see it on that slide, amount that goes to the general fund for the budget deficit funding. So we want to have a policy that kind of caps what that is, so we don't continue to see that grow year after year. So really just kind of setting a level that it's not going to go higher than this. So, I think there was one slide I showed where on this projected in 2030, it goes to 17.5 million. We don't want to see that happen where it just continues to grow, where we're offsetting that funding in the general fund.
And our goal is to bring our recommendations to the workshops that we have at the end of this year to start the next 2-year budget process. So we're not going to decide them today. We're going to go back, do some work and some research on best practices and have that recommendation for you towards the end of the year.
Thank you. Next is slide 14, proposed Measure H adjustments. Specifically, the third from the bottom, conversion of one police officer and one police officer recruit position to one police lieutenant position for 4th area command position. Does that mean that we are vacating an officer slot and a recruit position to do that?
Yeah, and this is kind of the restructuring that
Sure.
I'll say
Yeah, I
that the chief
understand
wants
that.
to do.
Yes,
Yeah. So, and these are not filled positions; they're vacant.
Okay. So we are vacating then one officer position and one officer recruit.
Yeah, and I will say
But
that we're not vacating, but they are vacant. Yeah,
Well,
we're
that
we're
position
reclassifying.
is what I mean. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Ricky?
Yeah, my main question is about the structural deficit that we've been talking about. And I'm just trying to figure out, when we see the structural deficit where it is, why we're forecasting in such a way that doesn't actually cover the structural deficit. So, I don't know, can you explain to me why we don't have a solution for that yet? Or are we just pushing it off in the future? How's that working?
No, I mean we work on it every year. Like even this year, we worked on reducing from where it started. So that's kind of I don't want to say work that's not seen, but it was higher than what it is in this budget. So every year we are working to reduce the amount that comes in. So we're working to reduce that from what's presented. So again, we're talking $15 million here. In this slide here, where we show it going up in the years in the future, that's just an estimated with this forecast here, but that's not what we're planning to do. We're planning to reduce that in the future.
And I'll note too, prior to Measure H, you got to remember we were 80% public safety in the general fund. And so if we were to eliminate that structural deficit from the normal general fund side, we would be reducing public safety positions, which is what Measure H was intended for, which is why covering the deficit with Measure H dollars is prudent. If we were to completely eliminate that structural deficit, we would be eating into police and fire positions in the general fund. Because I think we would have to take almost every other department of the general fund, and we probably still wouldn't have enough, and we'd still be taking police and fire positions. So to eliminate that deficit is nearly impossible. But we try to do things to minimize what that is, and we do that every year.
But it wasn't this slide, it was one earlier. That one. So this one makes it, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding, but it seems like this slide was covering Measure H and the general fund, correct?
No, this is just the general fund. This is
Oh,
just to
okay.
illustrate, yeah,
There's my
that
confusion.
expenditures are outgrowing revenues.
That's my question.
Any other questions from council members? If not, I'll open up to the public. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back from any final comments from committee members. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we are off to a great start, simply with the material you provided. In years past, we have been given a lot of detailed information on our budget, but this year, it's just concise, and it's very easy to understand. And I'm wondering if that's because we're working off the second year of a 2-year cycle, that it all makes, it's resonating more. So good job with putting the information together, and yeah, so it's much more palatable and comprehensible. So thank you.
Comment? None? How about council members? Any comments from council members? Seeing none, I'll go to the, already did the public. Okay, thank you, Steve.
All right, thank you.
Next, quality of life. Next on the agenda is the police department. And Chief Brandon. Hello, Chief.
Well, good evening, Chair Wright and Finance Committee members. Chief Gillespie with the Modesto Police Department. And tonight, I'm here to present the fiscal year 26-27 Police Department budget. And tonight, I plan to walk through the staffing, our funding sources, and how our budget aligns with the strategies and priorities of improving public safety in our community, as well as strengthening community trust and building a high-performance organization. This first slide, our department overview, really provides an overview of our department, and it's broken down into 4 divisions, and we'll talk about the Area Command Division as I go throughout this presentation today. But our Operations Division, as I said in the past, really consists of our patrol uniformed officers that go and answer our calls for service from our public every single day. Our Investigations Division, really, as you think about that as our detectives who follow up on felony crimes and go out and do that follow-up further investigation that's needed. Our support services is really our records division is the bulk of what that's made up, but a lot of the behind-the-scenes staff that really keep our department functioning on a day-to-day basis. And our area command division, which was a new division which was created 2 years ago, that really, when we talk about community-oriented policing and understanding and really getting developing that sense of what's going on in each geographical area of our city, that's what our area command division does. As we look at our organizational chart, our department consists of 383 full-time employees, including 216 sworn officers and 167 professional staff. Of those, 75 positions are funded through Measure H, and you can see the highlights of the Measure H icons over there, that the Measure H positions are across all 4 divisions. Probably a little hard to see on those staffing, but really talking about our Area Command Division, again, that's where the bulk of our Measure H positions reside. We look at the police department staffing. This staffing shows how our staffing has evolved over time. And for fiscal year 26-27, we're proposing total staff of 383 positions. And we continue to, even though sworn staffing has remained relatively stable over time, we have strategically increased our non-sworn positions over the years to make sure, and we've talked about this before, to make sure that our police officers can stay available for things that we need our police officers to do. And we're using other resources such as our chat team or our park rangers to handle lower level things that keep our officers available. We look at our staffing by fund. This shows the majority of our police department remains in the general fund, with the Measure H supporting those 75 positions, and then grants and special funds provide additional funds to target different type of strategic operations and support, allowing us to expand services throughout the city without relying on specifically Measure H or general fund dollars. The staffing history, really what this is going to show is our population growth over time related to our staffing history. And it's important to note that while our city's population has increased, our staffing levels have not proportionally kept pace which reinforces what I just talked about, is the use of alternative response models, non-sworn personnel to maintain service levels so we can fiscally afford that. And then, as we'll get into a little bit later, the use of technology. We've really invested heavily in the use of technology to be a force multiplier for our city and for our police department. This slide is showing the general fund revenue and expenses, and it represents our general fund budget, and it's made up consistently, or made up generally, most of it is salaries and benefits, with a very small portion coming from revenue sources like Prop 172 funding, fines, fees, and reimbursement. As I'm sure is no shock to anybody, the police department is not a revenue generating department, and so you can see that offset there. This represents our Measure H expenditures, and as you can see, these expenditures also are primarily salaries and benefits, and supporting both sworn and non-sworn personnel throughout our department, which has been a huge benefit since that 1 cent sales tax since it passed. Supports our area command division, CSOs, park rangers, chat, traffic officers, just a full measure of things to help us continue to keep our city safe. This is our police grants and revenues expenditures, and that continues to show our different funds. We have our traffic safety fund. Actually, that's the other one. But this shows all the different grants throughout the year that we have. Each year we get general grants, our Office of Traffic Safety grants, different things like that. Each year as the cost of things go up, those grants continue to increase. If you look in the 25, 26 years, we had our organized retail theft grant, and that's kind of where you see that offset there. It was a pretty large grant, and while we have the grant, couldn't make all the expenditures in 1 year, and we'll continue to spend that money. It was a multi-year grant. Our traffic safety revenue and expenses, that continues to, it's our traffic safety fund is what we call it. And as you can see back in my eyes are failing me here, 22, 23 fiscal year, we really started to invest heavily in our cameras, license plate readers throughout the city, our air support unit with Sky One, and as you can see, we continue to invest, and that's really what most of these expenditures go to, is technology and operations to really make our real-time crime center more effective, and any other traffic safety type things to keep our city safe on our roadways. Our traffic offender fund, so this fund can staff people and not things. The traffic safety fund, I should have mentioned before, can purchase things and items. It can't pay for people. We staff one traffic safety officer out of this fund. And this fund comes from different fines and forfeits, DUI fees and things like that. So really, our budget really goes to, and how it aligns with the strategic plan is, first and foremost, one of the things that we continue to focus on last year, it is our top priority this year, is to improve traffic safety throughout our city. So we've continued to work on this in previous years. We're continuing to work on it now, but we've been able to increase our traffic safety unit, going from 4 officers a few years ago to 8 officers and 2 sergeants, and our sergeants ride motorcycles as well, so a total of 10 in that unit. We have 2 DUI officers, and continue to go out and make a difference with traffic citations well up over 150% last year, and continue to increase even this year over last year already at this point in the year. We can implemented red light cameras, as you're aware of. We have Sky One that continues to be a huge asset, not just in criminal violations, but traffic violations. Expansion of our real-time crime center, the alternative response models with our chat program, our park rangers, blight abatement team. We just continue to use all of these resources to really put the resource where is needed and most fiscally responsible in doing that. Community safety and quality of life, we continue to work on community engagement events, everything we do. And we often get asked, how much does community engagement cost? Well, our whole budget really goes to community engagement because we pay our officers every day to be out in the street and answer calls. But I can tell you just a couple days ago, we went out to one of our local junior highs and had our officers play basketball with some of the officers. So that is captured in their normal salaries that they get paid every single day. And those are community engagement incidents and engagements happen every single day through Coffee with Cops and all the variety of things that we're involved in. And then building community trust. Talked about some of those things that we do, but we continue to go out there and do anything with relationship building, meet with neighborhood watch groups, reduce not only crime, but the fear of crime. Those are two things that really need to go hand in hand. And really increasing recruitment and retention, building that high-performance organization that our city expects and that our officers and our professional staff are really proud to work. One adjustment that we are requesting this year, and the mayor touched on it in a question, was really creating that 4th area commander position. That's a lieutenant position. We've had 3 up until this point. We've been able, through Measure H, to increase. We initially started with 1, we built to 2, we built to 3, and really we have 4 area commands in the city of Modesto, and really I need a 4th area commander. And what that allows us to do is, it's a middle management level, but allows us to really connect and understand what's going on in each area of our city. So that lieutenant is responsible for engaging with businesses, with neighborhood watch groups and alliances, to really make those connections on a daily and weekly basis to understand what's going on. And then they're taking the resources assigned to them through our crime reduction team, our traffic safety unit, all the different variety chat team, our park rangers, and helping direct specifically what their priorities are and what they need to do based on the community needs to really drive down crime and improve safety and the quality of life in our city for those geographic areas. It's just too much for 1 or 2 lieutenants to handle. We really need 1 for each area command. And as Steve mentioned, we have 14 current police officer vacancies as we stand right now. And so we're working this year. My goal is to really move forward. There's 2 academy dates per year, one in the spring and one in the fall. So we have the fall coming up, and we hope to fill as many of those vacancies as we can. But I really don't think, at least in this next fiscal year, that taking that police officer position and moving it to a lieutenant is really going to impact the operations where we're not going to be able to have another police officer on the street. As you guys are well aware, if it comes to the point where we need additional resources or we need to adjust, then the city manager will have a conversation, and we'd obviously come back to the council at some point if that was needed. And then the police officer recruit positions, that is something that you guys approved several years ago, and that really is when we're fully staffed with our police officer positions, making sure that we're getting ahead of the game. We know we have retirements every year, and so making sure that we can put people in those academy spots anticipating retirements so that we can continue to not be down officer positions. And so I feel comfortable at this point going down one of those police officer recruit positions to make this lieutenant a reality. And really, until we're full with those 14 vacancies, I won't be using those police officer recruits, if that hopefully makes sense. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. My only question or clarification on the 14 spots are because of retirements, not because of lateral changes to other departments. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, as I don't think I can overemphasize how big of a deal Measure H was. And as you guys are very well aware, we had a staffing problem in 2020, 2021, up until the passage of Measure H, and then we were able to really take measures in different aspects of improving the department, improving the resources, improving the equipment, improving the salaries and benefits, and we really don't lose officers anymore to lateraling to other places. Our biggest thing is we have eligible people of the age, and that's where we're losing the majority of our officers' staff right now is to retirements.
Thank you. Any comment or any questions from the committee? Councilman.
Thank you, Chair.
Darrell.
Out of the 383 full-time personnel with the police department, how many are vacancies of that?
Out of the 383, so we have the 14 police officer positions, and then we do have some vacancies in our professional staff. And if I'm looking at the right number, I think there's, and that goes from records clerks to all different types of people we have. Let me double check that number for you.
You can get that to me another time.
It looks
Text it.
30.5. We have cadets that are half positions. So 30.5
So we have-
professional positions and 14. So it's,
So you have 353 that are filled,
yeah,
and a half.
and a half.
And a question, one more question. Thank you. Sky One.
Yes.
Is that still down and being serviced?
It is. We hope to have it up in the next couple of weeks. The engine replacement has been underway. I think takes about 6 weeks, but I had a date at the end of this month. It's supposed to be back up.
So are we using the services of the sheriff's department?
When their air unit is up, either their airplane or their helicopter, we do. I just heard it up the other day. So yes.
Thank you.
Rosa, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Chief. I can understand why the majority of Measure H money would be directed to your area command section, specifically 44. Is it 44 million or is it, no, it's 44%? If you look on slide 3, you indicate Measure H contribution, 21 to field operations, 8.
Yes.
So is that percent?
Yeah, those are positions.
Positions, okay.
Yeah.
So for example, 44 positions are funded by Measure H for your area command?
Correct.
Okay. Do those numbers correspond or correlate to the amount of funding that go to each of the 4 areas approximately? In other words, this has most of the positions, therefore does it have more of the budget amount
Of the Measure H funding, it
of the
does.
Measure H funding?
Yeah, it is our second biggest division. Our field operations division, our patrol division is our biggest division, followed by now the area command division.
Okay. Due to council's decision and the police's recommendation to have a more stronger enforcement on smoke shops and create a stronger policy over smoke shop businesses, are you increasing the code enforcement area? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, so in this current proposal, we're not increasing. We have 12 code enforcement officer positions as it is right now. But we continue to focus on smoke shops with the inspections of our code enforcement officers and our police officers as well. We actually have a team through our area command division, our crime reduction team, that together with our code enforcement officers really have been targeting all types of issues within the city, including code enforcement. I go back to, and maybe this is where you're going with the city manager's comments at the beginning. Without Measure H, we would have had to cut positions. We wouldn't have had any of these positions to be able to go out and do this stuff.
Well, your code enforcement was already busy.
Correct.
But now where we're out in regards to smoke shops, we're even busier for the foreseeable future. So is funding revenue needed more in that area because of that extra focus and directive that our code enforcement officers are focusing on smoke shops?
I would say to be determined.
Okay.
I would say that we have a really good cadence going right now. We're continuing to ramp up our smoke shop operations, not just our smoke shops, but any tobacco retailers to go out and do inspections. Really, my focus is right now to really supplement that because we have very knowledgeable code enforcement officers, but we often, as you guys, we've presented before, come across criminal violations as well, is to fill these vacant police officer positions so that I can increase my crime reduction team. Mm-hmm. So my crime reduction team, our crime reduction specific to each division of the area command, I currently have 2. So I split 2 area commands basically utilize 1 crime reduction team. The goal with increasing these vacant police officer positions is to ultimately get 2 more crime reduction teams, 1 for each area command. That in conjunction with code enforcement, I think is going to be a really powerful tool to go do what you're talking about.
Wonderful.
And I'd also just quickly note that prior to code enforcement being brought over to PD, there was only 4 positions, and now we're at 12.
That's exactly what my question. Get out of my brain. So, okay, so and we're at 12, and we have no vacancies in that area?
I don't believe we have
Okay.
any vacancies. I can look at my vacancy report again. If we do, it's only 1 or 2, but
Okay,
we're
so
close to full.
At 12, we're almost, if not fully staffed.
Yeah.
In regards to code enforcement. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Question?
I have a comment. So
Okay, wait. So I'll open up to council members. Any council member or mayor? Chris? Okay. I'll open up now to the public. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee members. Any final comment? Nick, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say with code enforcement, you see that we are now more proactive rather than reactive. And you see code enforcement out looking for violations rather than reacting to complaints. That's my observation.
That's true.
And with regards to crime reduction unit, I've done a ride-along with that unit, and they really work the neighborhoods and respond quickly to neighbor complaints. This is a drug house, or those kinds of issues. So the monies, we've provided the resources to your department. As a result, we see where crime is reduced over the years. And I guess last year, no homicides. I think this year we may have 1.
100% increase.
Right.
100% increase
Right.
in homicide.
Right.
You sure it wasn't a suicide?
Right.
I'm just joking.
Right.
Okay.
Council member Scooter Braden.
Thank you. Congratulations on just being once again ahead of the game in realizing the area command concept, how valuable that is. And I have seen that engagement that your area commanders have with real people in their neighborhood, and that improvement in communication, that building of trust. And so I am in full support of bringing on the 4th area commander. I've seen the efficiencies, and I've seen the value that this has. So I'm looking forward to just seeing more fruit from this new tree that you planted. Thank you.
Thank you. I think my only comment I would make is that in the last 30 days, I've probably seen code enforcement leaving a business that I'm going into probably 4 or 5 times in the last 30 days, which
I know.
I'm not at smoke shops, but it's great to see that we do have code enforcement out there, and I think they're doing a great job. I'll open it up to council members. Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you. So to clarify, my question previously, I fully support the lieutenant position for the area command. My concern was whether you also needed the other 2 positions in addition to that.
Yeah, I think once we fill those vacancies, that'll be a conversation obviously with the city manager, and then if we feel at that point we need additional resources, then we would of course come back to the city council.
All right. I want that to be abundantly clear, that
Yes.
I wasn't suggesting
No.
that you not do it in any way. I support it as we voted on it before, but wasn't sure if you also needed the other police officer position and recruit position.
Not in this fiscal year, I think we're going to be okay.
Thank you.
Any other council member comment? Seeing none. Thank you, Chief. Next up is the Fire Department. Chief Evans, welcome and congratulations.
Sorry about that. Just keep smiling up here. So good evening, Chair Wright, committee, council, city staff, mayor, members of the public. I'm Shannon Evans, and I proudly serve as the Modesto Fire Chief. Feels good to say that. So for the first slide, for the fire department overview, the Modesto Fire Department is composed of 3 general categories: emergency operations, community risk, and business operations. So within emergency operations, we provide core emergency services to our community through fire, emergency medical, technical rescue, hazmat, and water rescue. Personnel service first responders to emergency and non-emergency calls for service. Under the community risk reduction, we provide fire code enforcement, plan checks, and administers the state fire code, conducts fire inspections and state mandated inspections, and provides public education and prevention training. Underneath the business operations, we provide logistical, technical, and administrative support to all divisions. We oversee personnel matters, including hiring, promotions, and workers' comp. We also oversee financial operations, including procurement, accounts payable, and payroll and station maintenance. To continue with the fire department overview, our full service contracts and administrative contracts allow us to best meet the needs of our community through organizational alignment, uniform command, high quality training, and resourceful collaboration. And those contracts, the full contracts, are obviously the Oakdale Rule, City of Ceres, Salida. The administrative contracts are the Consolidated and City of Turlock, and then our partnership agreement with MJC Community College District. Moving on to the fire department org chart, our department is composed of 234 employees representing the following labor organizations: the MCFFA, MCMA, and MCEA. Of those positions, 9 are paid for by Measure H. Given the wide range of union representation within our department positions, the department budget is complex and subject to all the union negotiated salary increases, benefit changes, and incentive updates accordingly. This chart depicting the fire department staffing, this chart shows a depiction of our department composition based on filled positions by contract and Modesto sworn personnel, grant-funded personnel, non-sworn employees, and Measure H-funded employees. For the fire department's revenue and expenses, the majority of our department's budget is comprised of salaries and benefits. Our suppression personnel recently negotiated a new contract, and it resulted in updates to special pays, salaries, and benefits. Based on the most recently negotiated MCFFA MOU effective July 1st of 25, MCFFA salary ranges increased by an additional 6%, and effective June 30th of this year, 3026, MCFFA salary ranges are scheduled to increase by an additional 5%. The variance between fiscal year 2025-26 budget and the fiscal year 26-27 proposed budget is 8.76% for expenditures and 12.42% in revenues. The expenditures are increasing due to scheduled MOU raises and standard inflation, while revenue increases are based on service contract renewals. The department, for the grant revenue and expenses chart, the department makes a concerted effort to pursue alternative funding through grants. Over the years, grant awards have been consistent. This year, there was an overlapping grant extension and new grant funding period, which caused a slight increase compared to normal. On the fire department's Measure H revenue and expenses, there was a 22.39% increase from current year to the proposed year, is due in combination to filled position vacancies and salary increases. The fire department strategic plan and budget. The Modesto Fire Department's proposed budget carries out the strategies adopted by City Council in the 2-year strategic plan in the following ways. Goal A is to improve community safety and quality of life through a combination of prevention and intervention efforts that address safety and its underlying issues. The department promotes community risk reduction through uniform municipal fire codes and completion of state-mandated fire inspections with the assistance of fire inspectors, community public education, and fire prevention division support. We are dedicated to increasing the number of technically trained first responders throughout our region by sending personnel to paramedic school and supporting the training division's efforts in the academies and professional development. Further, because of this partnership with MJC, the paramedic program is projected to come out to fruition in 2028, so early spring of 2028. We prioritize enhancing emergency medical services by refreshing and maintaining advanced life support equipment on rigs to increase the availability of ALS in our community. For the fire department proposed Measure H adjustments, these enhancements are of critical importance to our department and the community we serve. The first one is the apparatus manufacturer's lead time to production is still severely impacted, and purchasing our leased units allows us to remain fully operational. This 10-year lease agreement began back in 2016. Sending 6 personnel to paramedic school supports long-term staffing stability and maintains clinical capability. Each day, there's a minimum of 5 ALS rigs in the city. On average, there are 12 paramedics on shift on any given day, but this would increase the number to 14 with these 6 that we get through paramedic school who can provide critical ALS care. This enhancement is a practical solution until that MJC paramedic program is fully live in early 2028. And finally, realizing the opportunity to address a recommendation of the SOC study, our enhancement request to cover the Station 19 allows us to add an engine company and personnel to support coverage in the industrial district in the downtown corridor downtown Modesto. And it is an honor to serve as the fire chief for this community, and thank you guys for your support.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from our council or from our committee members? No? Yes, go ahead.
It's actually what you just said. Can you elaborate further on the need to augment the Station 19 and the increased need for services in that area? What's going on that necessitates that?
Well, the call volume downtown has obviously increased over the years for the reasons that we all know are aware of. We've noticed in the our contract with Ceres that engine predominantly does business in the downtown corridor and in the industrial district. So we just saw the value in bringing that into Modesto and to help cover. It's down here doing the work with our current dispatching system that we went to. It's choosing the closest engine when it's sending them to calls, and so that allows us to. We rely on that engine quite a bit for downtown Modesto. So we saw this as an opportunity to kind of fix that gap in service that we have. And
So how many engines will downtown now have?
it would be two engines and a truck company, back to the way it was when I started years ago. So be two engines and a truck company downtown. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we're excited about that. It's a great opportunity for us to enhance the services downtown for sure.
And I would imagine that bringing on a new engine will increase time. Will the engines be located at the same place?
Eventually, we're looking on a pattern to do that. Yeah, but right now it'll still run out of Station 19 until we can facilitate with the new improved Station 1 downtown, and then we'll look at some models to kind of enhance the service down here by moving that engine possibly, or yeah.
Great, thank you.
Where's Station 19 at?
So it's at 9th, right there at 9th, where the freeway goes over 9th Street. On the very end, Herndon comes along 9th Street. It sits right there. It's the old industrial station.
Okay. I have a question. On slide 6, I'm talking about revenues. What makes up those revenues?
Revenues. I would have to ask Meg. Slide 6.
Is that the contracts or?
The contracts make a little bit of revenue. We don't really make a lot on the revenues, but we make up a lot in our collaboration of service on those contracts. Ooh. So as we work together on how we work to do to.
Steve, you want to answer that? Yeah.
So a majority of that is going to be the contracts for service. There is some revenues that come into fire for other, like the fire inspections, but those are a smaller part of it. Majority of that's going to be for the fire contracts.
Okay, and do those revenues include billing out to insurance companies for if we go for a fire call? We have a program that we bill insurance companies, and I was just wondering, does that include that?
Yeah, so it's a small part of it, but it's not. It's the bulk of this is going to be the fire contract. There's a small portion of that, though.
And we are reviewing that contract right now. It hasn't bared the fruit we thought it would, and we need to take another look and then bring back a recommendation to the council on that.
Yeah, I would like to see maybe some information on how much we build, what our percentage getting reimbursed from the insurance companies on that. Okay, any other questions from committee members? If not, open up to council members. Any from council? Seeing none, open up to the public. Any of the public have any questions? Seeing none, bring it back to the committee. A final word from any committee members? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the fire chief for meeting with me today, sharing his vision of the fire department. I appreciate working with the city manager and convincing the city manager to add 6 more paramedics to our budget this year. We currently have 8, I believe you said today. We have 8 that are going through paramedic school. I appreciate your thought process on how we staff the fire department. You hire firefighters first and then train them to be paramedics. They get into where it's hot and sweat and dirt, and that's what you mentioned today. That's what the fireman's job is. So I appreciate the paramedic school program coming. Certainly that could turn out to be an enterprise fund for the city of Modesto, where it would offset the costs of funding those who would go into paramedic school. So your vision was enlightening, and I appreciate you sharing that with me and also sharing your time. I know today's your official first day, and thank you.
Councilman Rosa.
Congratulations on your appointment, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any council members? Mayor, go ahead.
Congratulations on your first day as fire chief for the city of Modesto. We're so grateful for you and recognize the profoundly impactful role that our firefighters play every single day in the lives of our residents. I just want to express appreciation to you for taking this on, and we look forward to supporting you in that role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bavaro, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Can you just take a few minutes and elaborate on what you shared with me today with the cave situation up in Calaveras County, I believe? And what it took with the participation of the Modesto Fire Department? I know you were there yourself as a fire chief, which was an impressive story, but by itself. But go ahead.
Extremely proud of the tech rescue team that was called to work that day. It was not in a situation that we would normally expect to be at. They went in, they provided a very professional service. They had to make decisions on the fly very quickly to assess risk and work with local experts that work in that territory every day and rely on kind of some of their suggestions. When we got there, they had everything lined out, following all the rules, that assessed everything. The crews were there. We actually had Medic 1 there. They had to go in and make some decisions that were not normal, and then quickly were able to assess that event was quickly changing from a rescue to a recovery. And that all happened fairly quickly. And then by the time that decision was made, then it slowed it way down, and then it was a long process to work through. But very proud of the crews, very proud of the vision that we've had with this regionalization effort to see the crews show up there and work together and collaborate, and the level of service that is now brought to not only to the city but to the county from our tech rescue team and our fire department. It was incredible, and got a lot of feedback from a lot of individuals about that. So they were very appreciative of all the efforts, and I was very proud of the guys that day. So.
And again, I'd like to note that the fire chief was on site a couple of days, I believe.
It was the day it got there when it initially happened, and then we all stayed until the late evening of the.
Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
Next is Parks and Recreation and Neighborhood Development. And Parks Director, Jeremy Rogers.
Good evening. My name's Jeremy Rogers. I'm your Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhoods Director. Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhoods is divided into 3 divisions. The first one, administration and historical properties. We oversee the golf course, the 2 golf course management. We oversee John Thurman Field operations and work with the Modesto Roadsters. We oversee all the policies and procedures for the department. And we also manage the 2 historical properties, the mansion and the museum. Park operations, they're the individuals, men and women that are out there that maintains our parks and then oversees the landscaping RFP contract. And then finally, recreation. Oops, went too fast there. Recreation. Our recreation professionals, they program our community centers and all the other fun activities that we offer to our citizens. Next, the org chart. Currently, we have 59 full-time employees, and we are very part-time, seasonal heavy. We hire over 300 individuals throughout any given time throughout the year. In general fund, we currently have 45 general fund staff and 14 Measure H staff. Those Measure H staff are housed in our park operations division. Okay. Our overall budget is up. Our revenues or our expenditures are up a little bit this year. That's due to salaries and benefits, as well as a little bit to operate all the wonderful things that we've done throughout our park system. Okay. Measure H, the expenditures that we have here are tied to mostly to salaries and benefits, and those employees don't bring in revenue yet. We'll figure out some way. For golf, golf is trending in a great direction. Our expenditures are up, but so are our revenues, and we anticipate that going up even more once we get the Dryden Clubhouse project completed. The Modesto Center Plaza, obviously, we are not operating that anymore, so our expenditures are significantly down. However, we are, per an MOU agreement with the DoubleTree, we are bringing in revenue for that. And then the strategic plan, our goals that tie in with the strategic plan, we revamped the special event permit process and policies to make that easier for our citizens and to make it more efficient for individuals to provide special events throughout our city. We significantly increased our programming at our 2 historical properties. I'm seeing many of you, as well as our citizens, that come to all our events that we do at the museum and mansion. And then finally, we are looking to complete the Parks Recreation Master Plan. That will be done here in a couple months, so we're looking forward to that and having that completed. And that is my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers, any questions from?
Quick question.
Okay,
Chair. Why is it taking so long to update the master plan?
It's actually on time. We wanted to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to make sure it is exactly what we want. We did not put an end date on it when we went into the negotiations with Barry Dunn, and so we've gone back and forth. There's been a lot of back and forth with making sure that they provide us with the plan that we want and what the citizens of Modesto deserve.
Okay, so you're on target.
Yes.
The reason I ask that is I do get questions from interested parties that will tell me, why is it taking so long? So thank you for responding to that. And I assume as the days go on, we're going to get into dollars that are allocated for specific programs like the mansion and the museum. Am I correct on that?
Not for this presentation. This is just our overall.
Overall, but I mean later this week? This will be the time? How much are we allocating towards the mansion and the museum? Have we increased the expenditures?
I will bring that back to you, and I'll get those exact numbers.
We can make that a report back if you'd like, if you want to know specifics about the mansion. and
Yes,
museum.
because I'm, again, people are inquiring, wanting to know about the budget for the mansion and the museum, so I need to respond back. Thank you.
Councilmember.
Quick question. Council approved the price differential on surging prices for the golf course. Do you know now, or can you report back on how that new surging pricing level is working and figures with that?
It's very early. We only have the numbers through March, but so we started that January 1, and so we have January, February, and March numbers, and they are up. It's very successful. Early on, of course, we got complaints. Anytime we raise prices, we receive some complaints, but it's been very successful, and we are those Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings. It's a premium time, and so we're requiring premium pay, and it has been very successful.
Okay, it's successful in the fact that players are paying it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
they're not playing because of it.
Correct,
So
absolutely.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. I went out to Dryden on Friday afternoon just to talk to staff and see how many people were out there. It was absolutely packed.
Wonderful.
It was great to see.
Okay, so we will continue with that price,
Yes.
that pricing. Thank you.
My understanding is that all those funds that we're collecting on fees are going right back into the grounds themselves. Is that correct?
So for that increase, that is going to pay for the Dryden Clubhouse project. $1 million of that is going to the, going back into the grounds. We're going to fix the bunkers at Creekside. We're going to do some improvements to the driving range at Dryden with that $1 million.
Great. And then on my next question is that on our master plan for our Parks Department, are we looking at, we do have 3 or 4 major events in Modesto each year, graffiti parade, 4th of July parade, Christmas parade. And one of my concerns has always been that a lot of these events are put on by nonprofits. And some of our nonprofits members are getting up there in age, and they're struggling on having a member show up to do these events. And then some of these events are what we are known for throughout California, like the graffiti parade. So are we looking at where we as a city can come along, work with these nonprofits so that when the day comes that they cannot put these events on, we can step in and be able to continue them on down the road?
I think it's very important that we continue to work with our partners and find other partnerships. If those partners go away, to find new partnerships to make sure that those events still happen. If an event were to go away, we'd have to take a serious look at our budget and our staffing. Do we have the capacity to take that on in-house? If not, who can we partner with in order to continue those special events that are so important to the city?
And I think one of my concerns would be making sure we have staff that really know how these events are being organized, how these events are happening on a daily basis or a time period, so that if one of those partners did step away, we can pick up the pieces, get another nonprofit, but we would have the template, for example, on how to operate and stuff.
Yes.
Thank you. Any council members, Mayor, anything from you? Seeing none, open up to the public. Yes, Steve.
I just wanted to answer the question for the museum mansion funding. So in the proposed budget for the museum, there is $375,000, and of that, about $254,000 is discretionary funding. And then for the mansion, there's $363,000, and $234,000 is discretionary funding.
Has that increased over
last fiscal year?
I can't read, the museum's up about 20,000 and then the mansion's up about 10.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comments? Any from the public? Yes, go ahead.
Juan Tellez, West Modesto resident. I'd be curious to understand some of the operating costs around the community centers and any of the recreation programs in the future.
Let me turn to the general fund. That all falls under our general fund, and I can come back with specific numbers if the council or if the committee would like.
Okay, that'd be fine. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee members. Any committee final comment? City manager, have a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, like, if the constituent wants to meet with Jeremy, that might be better offline. But if we want to bring back a presentation for more detail, the council, we surely would be welcome to do
Juan,
that.
we will okay to meet with Jeremy? Okay, fine. Mayor?
Just a comment, appreciate everything that you're doing. I continue to hear positive comments surrounding all of the parks and the programs that are going on. It's really impressive to see a very thick catalog of all the options for our residents to participate from ages 0 to 110. So many options. It's really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll resume at 6:35.
Thank you.
to the committee. Next up is our city manager's office. City manager?
Good evening, Chair Wright, members of the Finance Committee, Mayor and Council. I'll go over the City Manager's Office budget. I got it. All right, so the City Manager's Office now only consists of two divisions. The regular City Manager's Office, we provide strategic leadership and implement your council direction, act as a liaison for intergovernmental affairs, and provide oversight to all city, non-charter city departments. And we just lost the screen. And then Community and Media and Legislative Affairs, it's overseeing all of our communication, including our social media platforms, and oversees our contracts with state and federal lobbyists, and develops, monitors, and promotes the city's legislative platform. Here is a look at our organizational chart with 2 deputy city managers, support staff, and then the Public Relations and Legislative Affairs Division. Here is our staffing. I had mentioned we're only down to 2 divisions. This is with the separation of the Office of Performance Management and Budget into its own division, but our positions have stayed flat. Subsequently, our expenses have stayed relatively flat with only associated salary and benefit increases. There's been no additional changes within the city manager's budget other than the changes associated with labor agreements and PERS costs. Our Measure H revenue and expenses, the $255,000 is associated with external help for communications and developing certain promotional activities, as well as crisis communication. On the strategic plan priorities, the City Manager's Office obviously is responsible for the entire implementation of the strategic plan and working closely with the departments to make sure that the City Council's vision is executed. We do have a couple of set priorities that we do take mainly control of. That's the fiscal responsibility and sustainability, communications, as well as building a high-performance organization. We do have a proposed Measure H adjustment. It is a net impact of $0. It is taking the $255,000 and converting it into another multimedia designer position. This way we can continue to put out content that is engaging to our community. It is also going to include biannual mailers. I'm waiting for Councilmember Wright to perk up a little bit. Biannual mailers that will be delivered to our community. Our goal with communication is we clearly understand that communication isn't a one-way communication. You have to have multiple platforms to make sure that we're targeting our diverse community, and that is our intent. The mailers will be in English and in Spanish, and we will look forward to doing those around the end of the year as well as the beginning of the fiscal year.
Great.
And I will be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from our committee members? Nope, seeing none. Thank you on the mailers. Actually, I'll be looking forward to seeing those. How about council members? Any? No from council? I'll open up to the public. Any public? Seeing none, bring it back to the committee members. Any final word? Seeing none. Council members, any final word? I would say you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to at least make a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you for everything that you do. I honestly do not know how you keep on top of every single detail and understand and know every single detail. It's quite impressive, and it's an honor to have you as our city manager.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to the city attorney's office. And Mr. Sanchez.
Good evening, Chair, committee members, Mayor, Council Member. I will be presenting the City Attorney's Office budget for this year. Jose Sanchez, your City Attorney. For the city attorney's office, I really wanted to divide it up into three different categories: really advisory, litigation, and transactional work that we do. Of course, we're the lawyers. We provide advice. We work very closely with staff. We work closely with counsel, providing you legal advice. We also do litigation. We're in court representing the city, both in criminal and civil matters. We manage all litigation from that hits the city. We also do a lot of community prosecution. Mainly, that's our criminal violations of the Modesto Municipal Code. And I'll go over some statistics with you later during the strategic plan. We also do a lot of what I call transactional work. We review a lot of documents. We prepare resolutions. All the legal documents you see, whether there be leases, ordinances, different agreements. The org chart, your city attorney's office, as you know, is a hybrid model with your city attorney and many attorneys being provided through a legal services agreement that you have with my firm. The city also has in-house attorneys and staff. We do have two deputy city attorneys, one of them that's funded through Measure H. We have two paralegals, one of them also being our office manager, and we have a legal secretary that's also funded through Measure H. And we do have an administrative office assistant that we are currently recruiting for. Staffing-wise, it's been pretty consistent over the several years with the 6 members that I just talked about, with the 2 attorneys and 4 staff members. As far as our revenues and expenses, they've stayed pretty consistent. You can see the chart there. We don't really bring in revenue. However, the revenue does show up there. We do have some agreements with the certain departments that are not general fund for that type of work that our in-house folks do. We do help, though, assist the staff that does collect different fees and fines. We do assist in the collection efforts, but it doesn't show up in this graph. As far as Measure H, as I mentioned, we do have 2 employees, 1 legal secretary and 1 attorney that are funded by Measure H. And they're funded by Measure H because they do a lot of that community prosecution. Those cases that go to court, quality of life associated crimes that we do prosecute. As far as the strategic plan and what we really, I joke and I kind of say, well, I'm really involved in all of the strategic plan because we work with all divisions, all staff, different departments. But I did want to highlight a few that are important. All of them are important, but a few that I did want to note. One of them is improve community safety and quality of life. I didn't mention we do community prosecution. Just as an example, and I know I've come here before and talked about our prosecution and our administrative hearing cases. When the chief came up here, our police chief, talking about community prosecution, more officers, more citation, more code enforcement, more citation. Just as a reference, in 2023-2024 fiscal year, we were at 942 cases that we went to go prosecute of the Modesto Municipal Code and 31 administrative hearings. Those administrative hearings could be like blighted homes, different folks, businesses that want an admin hearing that we staff. In 24-25, that number went up for court from 942 to 1,091. And that was the 24-25 fiscal year, with the admin hearings jumping from 31 to 49. This year, 25-26, so this fiscal year, year to date, we are already at 1,181 prosecution cases that we're going to court to prosecute Modesto Municipal Code violations, and we're at 87 administrative hearings. And that was last year, the entire year was 49. Now it's 87 just year to date. And that is clear as far as there's more code enforcement officers, there's more police officers, therefore there's more citations that we have to prosecute or administrative hearings to do. We do have other goals, of course. We work very closely with your community development department as far as housing and housing action plans. That's very important to our office as well. Work very closely with staff on the different agreements that staff has. Staff has done a great job in this arena. We're proud and happy to be right there to assist. We also have obviously the long-term financial sustainability, working very closely with risk. One of our goals is to reduce the general liability exposure claims. We want to work closely with risk in order to kind of figure out, like, what's the risk, how can we reduce it, working closely with staff. And you see a lot of that work already being done through Public Works, Parks, and all your departments in order to reduce that risk. And of course, pro-growth, economic development strategy. Economic development is a priority for the city. We're working closely with staff, of course, to attracting more opportunities for entertainment, for sports, bringing more things, obviously more great opportunities here for entertainment in Modesto. And that's the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Nick, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the city attorney's office, we have 6 employees that work for the city of Modesto. We have a hybrid model where we contract with your law firm, and then we have 6 employees in your office that works for the city of Modesto. So who are those 6 employees report to? Would it be you, or would it be to the city manager?
Well, I manage the office. So they would report, they report daily operations with me, but of course the city manager is on top of of all staff. But they do report, I do manage the office and work closely together with them to different opportunities, manage their work, make sure that things are getting done here in Modesto that need to get done from our office.
So then it would be the city manager that would make the promotions or separation of employment and all of that?
At the end of the day, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosa.
It would be informative to delineate on your org chart who those 7 full-time employees are.
7 or 6?
7. If you look at the top of the org chart, the blue is under city attorney. Total full-time employees, FTEs, are 7.
And you're absolutely correct. It says 7 because your budget still has the city attorney position. It still has it as a full-time employee for budget purposes, and I'll look to Steve to make sure that that's why we have 7, because we still show the city attorney as a full-time employee, even though it's really through contract. And it's just that allotted revenue really goes to pay a portion of that contract. But as far as the city of, that's a great idea. Next time, what I'll do is for the org chart, I'll highlight it in a different color. But it's really our deputy city attorney, prosecuting deputy city attorney, our paralegal manager, paralegal, the legal secretary, and the administrative office assistant. 3 are the in-house folks.
Perfect. And all attorneys provide advice. So why is there advice attorneys separate from all the other attorneys?
We wanted to classify the specialists, like the land use attorneys, employment attorneys, really capturing the specialty that some folks have, that's really all they do. And then more of the hybrid, the advice attorneys that I could send in every single department to provide advice about all matters.
So they're more general field attorneys, because all attorneys give advice.
Exactly. Yes, they do. But some I could plug into everywhere. It was just more of specialists.
Okay, specialists.
Versus non-specialists.
That makes sense. Okay, special. Okay.
They try to provide advice.
Okay, got it. And don't prosecuting attorneys litigate, or are those 2 different functions?
No, that's a great question. So prosecuting, yes. That's meant for what we call prosecuting, because we do community prosecution. We're not the district attorney, so we don't go prosecute the penal code or anything like that. But we do prosecute your municipal code, the crimes under your municipal code that's still considered criminal. Those are our prosecuting attorneys. And yes, they go to court daily.
That could be traffic court also.
Because you distinguish prosecuting attorney and litigating attorneys.
Yes, we have, so it can be combined. What I wanted to highlight here is the reason why Measure H is paying for this prosecuting deputy city attorney that you have here. For justification for Measure H, the reason why we needed this additional position a few years back is in order to capture all of those quality of life citations that we're getting from the police department. That's why we wanted to call them prosecuting. Just to differentiate the straight litigation, which could be a contract dispute, it could be a slip and fall, other types of damage, whereas prosecution is of your code.
I understand. Got it. Thank you for that clarification. No more questions, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Okay, Chris, Rick?
Yeah. Jose, one question I had about the budget this year is, do you feel like you have enough help if, like, I don't know, a council member might be coming up with a new ordinance and you feel good about that, you know how that happens sometimes.
It does happen sometimes. I think right now, as far as what we have, I think it's definitely workable. If for some reason, something that we need additional funds, we're in constant communication, obviously, with the city manager, with the council, and we'd be coming back if we needed something else. I think this is definitely workable for what we currently have on the plate. If more things come up, we'll definitely be quick to address it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members or council members? Open up to the public. Any public questions? Seeing none from the public, bring it back to the committee. Any final comments from the committee? Councilman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many attorneys and staff are with your firm?
Well, our firm, we have over 30 attorneys at the moment. We have quite a bit of staff, but we do have, as I mentioned, we have specialists that come into the city. And again, the city ends up we have a deep bench for the city to receive services from, and they only provide services as needed.
Okay, so if the city of Modesto was to require additional service from your specialist, is that additional billing to the city of Modesto, or is that all is it all just one bill?
The city of Modesto has a contract with my firm that sets the rates, the hourly rates, and it's, of course, you only pay for what you use. So it's all under the same contract, and it would show up under the bill.
Okay, so it'd be an hourly rate.
Correct.
And it's not like a monthly retainer.
No.
And do your staff and the city of Modesto work with each other, or is it separate? How does that work?
No, 100%. We definitely work together. The reason why you also have some of the in-house kind of your attorneys, and this came up when we ended up getting the additional prosecuting attorney for the Measure H, is also my goal is to make sure that Modesto's provided the best legal services for the best cost. Having that in-house person instead of going completely outsourcing is because prosecutors have to go to court daily, every single day. Well, we thought it was more efficient, and we've seen that it's more efficient and better cost to have somebody that's actually in-house. We work very closely. Again, I work very closely with the attorneys and with staff that are part of that are City of Modesto employees. And we have good, obviously great teamwork there.
So whenever we have outside attorneys that are not part of your firm or not part of the city of Modesto, that billing goes to the city of Modesto, or does that billing go to your firm?
That's when we use outside specialists that we believe it's better to have another firm, an outside firm. Like I know we do a lot of slip and falls, for example, through other firms that we just came to the last council meeting with. The city has specific agreements with those firms as well. And that's additional billings, doesn't come through my firm. They end up.
So they bill the city of Modesto directly?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that billing comes through the different departments too. depending on where, if it's slip and fall or police or whatever.
That's right. And we have, of course, I'll check that billing, but also the departments that use those services will also check that billing.
Thank you. Councilmember Scooter Braden.
Thank you, Chair. As both you and the police chief Gillespie referenced, code enforcement activity is increasing. You articulated it went from 942 cases, now we're going to be prosecuting 1,181 cases, a large amount in the code enforcement area with the code cases. Did you ask for an increase in revenue for that, for prosecuting those violations? With the anticipated increase in activity?
I did not. We're watching again. We do have our community prosecutor that we're getting through Measure H. As things pick up, we may be, depending on how things are going, we may be asking for additional funds. At this moment, I would like to kind of continue the year, seeing how we end up. This is the highest year in prosecution. Definitely see how we end the year, and then going into next year, I think we're good for right now.
Okay.
We are, we want to be as efficient as possible, cover as much as possible. But, if, like I said, if something is needed, I would definitely talk with your city manager and come back to the council.
But as you see it right now, you have sufficient funding to cover that increase in code violations and need for prosecution?
I'm going to be careful because the police chief is back there, and he probably has quite a bit of more prosecuting out there to do. But as of right now, I'm comfortable with what we have now. And of course, I continue to check with staff, with the attorneys to make sure to see what they need.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any council members to comment?
Thank you,
Mayor?
Jose.
Mayor.
Your service is greatly appreciated, and I wish I had your ability to just stay completely neutral at all times and calm under lots of pressure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing none, thank you. Next up is the city clerk's office.
Good evening, Finance Committee members, Mayor Zwalin, and Councilmember Ricky. Diana Yaris-Perez, your city clerk. We'll begin with an overview of the city clerk's office. The city clerk's office has 3 areas of service: City Clerk Division, Elections, and Mail Services. Under the City Clerk's Division, key responsibilities are managing the agenda of the City Council meeting and the City Council Standing Committee meetings, attending and recording the minutes of the City Council and Council Standing Committee meetings, act as the agent of service for the city, which means we accept all claims, summons, and subpoenas and administrative appeals filed with the city, audit fiscal transactions, so we audit the weekly check register, the payroll register, as well as ACH payments. Maintain the city charter and the city municipal code, which basically consists of ensuring that any ordinances that the city council adopts and passes are timely published and codified into our online municipal code, so the public's aware of any changes in our municipal code. Administer the oath of office for newly elected officials, as well as elected school board members, new members of boards, commissions, and committees, and new employees. Serve as the Political Reform Act filing officer, so we ensure that all annual 700 forms are filed timely, as well as campaign statements, and posted online for public access. We publish all legal notices and also respond to and receive all public records requests filed with the city. In addition, we serve as a records manager for the city, and as of September of last year, we are now processing Passcode applications. Under the Elections Division, we serve as the elections officer for the City Council and the Modesto City Schools Board of Education elections, and also provide mail services, which entails sorting, metering, and delivering mail throughout the various city departments and locations. City Clerk's org chart consists of 6 full-time positions. We have 4 positions in the City Clerk's Division. 1 is funded through Measure H, and then 2 full-time positions in Mail Services, and I directly oversee elections. History of city clerk's full-time staffing levels. In fiscal year 24-25, we were reallocated a deputy city clerk position to assist with the ever-increasing public records request. So we are now at 6, as mentioned, positions as mentioned a bit ago. City Clerk's Office revenue and expenses. As you can see, under revenues, we now have something under revenues due to passport services being offered. In addition, as mentioned earlier, for expenditures, there's been a slight increase, and that's due to salaries and benefits. Under elections, revenue, and expenses, you will see that there was quite an increase there, but that's due to the November 3rd election, where we will have 3 council seats and 4 school board member seats. Measure H, revenue and expenses. As mentioned earlier, we do have one position that's funded through Measure H, and that's a deputy city clerk position that's assisting with our public records requests. Mail services is ISF funded. Revenue expenses, as mentioned earlier, a slight increase due to salaries and benefits, but other than that, it's been pretty constant. City Clerk's strategic plan and goals. One of the goals is to continue to promote trust and engagement between the community and the city, so continue to serve as that vital link between the community by encouraging the democratic process and encouraging public participation, ensuring municipal elections are free, fair, and compliant with all legal regulations. As mentioned earlier, we have an election in November, 3 council seats, District 2, 4, and 5, and 4 school board seats, trustee areas 1, 3, 5, and 7. The goal is to manage the candidate nomination process effectively and efficiently. That process is July 15th through August 7th. Manage campaign filings and disclosure filings during the election period. That's important to have those posted on a timely basis. Act as an impartial steward of the electoral process by making sure the elections are transparent, that the city clerk is available to all members of the public that have elections questions and available to candidates wanting to run for office. Maintain and enhance the city's accessibility to the historical and city public records. Currently, the city's legislative history is online for the public from 1884 to date, and we're continuing to add additional public information on our city website. In coordination with the city attorney and city manager, provide oversight of implementation and compliance with Senate Bill 707 that takes effect on July 1st. Build a high-performance organization. Under that goal is to, I'm currently partnering with the HR director to lead the implementation of NetFile, which is our boards, commissions, and committees' new software module that will help us effectively manage our various boards, commissions, and committees. That'll go live Friday of this week. In addition, advance organizational effectiveness through effectively managing our public information that's posted on the city website. City Clerk oversees quite a bit of software that is available online for public access, one of those being our Public Records Act request portal, so ensuring that's always available online for public access. Last year, we, in coordination with the city attorney's office and the various departments, processed and responded to over 1,000 public records requests. Facilitate the posting of statements of economic interest and campaign filings. As mentioned earlier, that's important to effectively manage that, those pre-election campaign statements during the election period. Manage the city's active 23 boards, commissions, and committees by being a resource to the City of Modesto liaisons that manage various boards, commissions, and committees to help them effectively manage their boards and committees they're responsible for. Post City Council agendas in 100% compliance with the Brown Act, and timely prepare and post the minutes so the public's aware of the legislative actions the City Council took. Continue to conduct bid openings and accept claims. Last year, we received over 609 claims, summons, and subpoenas filed with the city. And then one item that I did not include in the slide, but I did want to mention, is continuing to effectively provide passport services. To date, we've processed over about 1,200 passports, and there's quite a demand for that service. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions from committee members?
I have more comments than I do questions.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to mention passports. I didn't see it on there. I know that's been a very busy job for the city clerk's office and everything. We really appreciate that. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you have any quantifiable data on those documents that you have microfished in order to preserve historical data for the city?
As I mentioned, we've had all the information from 1884 to date. I can get back to you. We haven't really looked at the numbers of people actually looking at the data.
Will you be able to quantify the documents? In other words, we've microfished
Yeah. we can-
50,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Any committee members or council members? Seeing none, I'll open up to the public. Any public? No public. Bring it back to committee members for any closing remarks.
I do have
Go ahead.
closing remarks. I just can't thank you enough for just the professionalism and the service-oriented mindedness that you and your team provide the city. Beginning from the annual report on committees, boards, and commissions, where you now provide the council and the public information on how we are making a strong effort to ensure that these committees, boards, and commissions reflect the demographics of the city of Modesto, what they look like, what they think like, how they feel, and how that whole process has been streamlined. You've articulated all that into a report made available to the public, and it's all there, really increasing the transparency and efficiency in this area where it wasn't as strong before. So kudos on that. And I know that you guys, you work so diligently and so humbly, you and your entire team. The number of pieces of document that the mail, the Public Service Act requests, what you guys microfiche, the number of, it's just immense. And my eyes would be cross-eyed if I had to work with that level of detail of documentation, but you guys do it just without complaint. And lastly, your innovative idea to bring in the additional service of passport services to our community has just been immensely well received. Every day that I come to work, I see a lot of individuals at the lobby, whereas before it was pretty quiet, waiting there to process their passport. So I could just tell that this was a service that was well needed and desired, and you had the mindset to bring it forth and provide it to them. So thank you for that, and thank you for the service you provide Modesto.
Thank you. Any comments from council members? Mayor, go ahead.
Regarding the historical documents, I was at a recent board meeting, and there was a need to look back and find historical evidence in the charters, in the charter, and when certain votes were taken for certain items, and it went back to this was from the 1960s. So they mentioned to me they were so easily able to access that information, and how appreciative they were. And it made their research much less difficult than it would have been to get that otherwise. So I'm really grateful for that. Regarding passport services, Councilmember Scudia-Brayton mentioned that there's always many people in the lobby, and it's really delightful, especially to see children and families. And I think that is an experience, if for no other, that they are in City Hall and on the 6th floor and able to see where these offices are and what it means, what community service really looks like and feels like. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up on the agenda was the city auditor, but we're going to hold that over till tomorrow. And so we're going to move on to the Community Economic Development Department. And Jessica Hill.
Thank you, Chair Wright and the rest of the Finance Committee. Jessica Hill, Director of Community and Economic Development. So for a little bit about the department, our department has 5 different divisions. It starts with administration, which includes cannabis, economic development, so business retention and attraction, planning, which both goes through our current planning and general plan, building safety, which goes through our building permits, as well as our rental housing safety program, and community development, which oversees housing and homelessness, and our infrastructure financing programs. So overall in the department, we have 59 full-time employees, plus, or 4 of those would be for Measure H, and again, broken up into the following. So 3 in administration, 6 in economic development, 11 in planning, 19 in building safety, and 19 in community development. Here's a little history of our full-time employment history of the department. And here we're going through our revenue and expenses. So overall department is just over 13 million. 9 or almost 10 million is recovered, and so we do have that 3 million, which is covered by general fund. These are our general fund revenue and expenses. So it's about $9.3 million. And again, 5.9 of that, which is included by different permit fees that we do receive. Here we go for our HUD and IFP admin. So these are non-general fund cost centers, and so these are costs recovered either through our community facilities districts or all of our HUD grants. And their budget is about 3.6 million. And then our Measure H revenue and expenses. And so here you can see the last 4 years or 5 years of that. You can see the actual hike in 24-25. This is when we launched our ADU revolving loan fund. It's also due to our bridge housing as well as our downtown streets team. And so primarily for the next fiscal year, it's looking at our rental housing safety program and then a continuation of those other programs as well. As we move on to our strategic plan, we have a lot of strategic plan activities in CED I'm excited to explain. So the first one's really continue to explore our bridge housing sites, where we've identified 2 new sites that council haven't seen yet, which would produce an additional 18 units, and so more to come coming up. Another one is reduce the number of homeless individuals in Modesto. From our 25 and our 2026 point in time count, we saw a 23% reduction. And so we're very excited about that. And that's a reduction of 521 homeless individuals. As we look at our affordable housing goals, we had a goal to approve an additional 200 affordable housing units. We've been able to approve 86 units, which has been due to McClure Meadows as well as El Capitan. And then also in partnership with those 2 programs, we've been able to apply for just over $33 million to help bring into in Modesto. As we move on to our building code compliance, our goal was to bring 50 unpermitted, unsafe buildings into compliance. We've been able to bring 18, which is good. We brought them to hearing to kind of resolved. The cool thing with this, though, is we've also been able to bring 77 cases resolved prior to hearing. Our next goal is to expand our rental housing safety program to inspect 1,500 units, bring 300 rental units into compliance, and complete registration of 15,000. To date, we've been able to inspect just under 2,500 units, have brought 1,300 units into compliance, and completed registration of just over 19,000. Last up on this slide is to facilitate the development in downtown with an updated downtown infrastructure to encourage development. So our goal was to implement quiet zones and implement an EIFD in partnership with the county. We are continuing to work with Rail Pros, and we're working with them to actually start the design of what these quiet zones improvements would be to a 65% range. We're also continuing talks with the county for an EIFD, and part of this is tied also to the Cosmont feasibility study that we're working on. As we're working kind of on our next goals, the next one was to ensure that we're updating our general plan consistent with the city vision. We've been able to complete all our outreach for our land use alternatives, and we'll bring our preferred alternative to council coming shortly. We're looking to explore a corridor study with McHenry Avenue, which is going to begin in the fall of this year. And then really look at our overall development review process. And so we're going to be launching our comprehensive fees task force, which is really going to take a look at all of our development user fees, and that's planned to start in fall 2026. And then we've also been looking in ways to evaluate and streamline our development review process. So we've been able to complete our permit efficiency study and successfully been able to close many of the recommendations associated with that. So we're well on our way to streamlining our process, or even more streamlining our process. As we move on to our next ones for success of a vibrant and economically sustainable business climate, one of them was to establish a loan program for business and property owners to address blight, and we've been able to partner with Valley First Credit Union to do 2 revolving loan programs, one for small businesses and one's for for facade improvements. So we've been able to do that, and they've been successfully being used. Our next goal is to attract, retain, and expand new businesses in Modesto. Some new business investments we've had over this last year Sage Plastics, a Walmart expansion, Vallarta Supermarkets, and Lululemon, who just opened. And through those openings, we've been able to create 203 new jobs. We were also looking with our industrial business attraction. What we do is we actually partner with Opportunity Stanislaus through requests for proposals. We've completed them with different sites for Project Voltify and Project Eco Rock. And we're still looking at what other sites we have available and what barriers we can help mitigate to help get more construction in those areas. And then the last goal was to engage with existing businesses. And so we've been able to do launch our business retention program, which we've been able to administer to 126 businesses. And we have a very cool dashboard that really talks to them about their satisfaction with being within the city of Modesto. So as we move on to advance a pro-growth economic development strategy that focuses on downtown sports, entertainment, and building Modesto as a regional destination. That was a mouthful. So the first one is really finalize an economic development strategy with a component addressing downtown. Good news is we did approve our economic development strategic plan, and it's currently being implemented. We're in our first year of implementation. Next up is really looking at redeveloping the courthouse. And so we had a great community meeting which supported some courthouse renderings that were done in partnership with a community member. We also have a draft proposal that was sent to the state. We're waiting on responses on that, on next steps there. We are looking at approving new mixed-use projects in our downtown, and we're currently vetting potential sites and speaking to property owners. And then looking at new housing units downtown. So apart from mixed use and apart from 7th Street Village, we actually have 35 other units in various stages of construction downtown. We're still looking at attracting our new business headquarters downtown, as well as really working in partnership with Beam on their next steps on the bioindustrial test bed. As we move on to affordable sports and entertainment options in Modesto, so exploring our gaps and determine the best fit. So right now we're in this feasibility stage with Cosmont and our fiscal analysis. We're continuing to negotiate and draft different terms and opportunities for our partnership with the United Soccer League. We're working on the redevelopment of the municipal golf course, and this is kind of in tandem with those things. And then reuse of John Thurman Field. So we've been able to secure the Pioneer League to be there, and the season opener will be May 19th. So for our proposed Measure H adjustments, we're looking at some various proposals. One big thing is we're looking to bring our rental housing safety program in-house. So previously we were using consultant inspectors to do this. We're looking to fund 2 inspectors and then an AOA 2 to help support the rental housing safety program. So we'll have more flexibility to having them all done in-house. We're looking to help with Modesto Gospel Mission and extend their Safe Sleep program. So it is $100,000 annually. And then we're looking to bring on a community development administrative analyst. And this position specifically will assist local nonprofits to help tap into other grant funding, CalAIM funding, in order to help them be more sustainable organizations as well. We also have 2 proposed non-Measure H adjustments. We have been extremely busy on the development side in both planning and building safety. And so we're looking for 2 additional people to help with the counter. And so really go through initial questions, help the customer service experience, and really intake all the applications. So we're looking for 2 development services technicians, 1 in planning and 1 in building safety. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good report. A lot of, busy. Any, Councilmember Rosa?
I don't know who's going to be the first one. Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Wow. I could barely keep up with everything you're doing. Your team is doing, you and your team are just doing amazing projects, closing them out, you're opening them up, you're just creating opportunities and making Modesto shine. So thank you for that. But how do you plan on paying for everything? So I see, at least on your CED revenue and expenses, there's a gap there. So your expenses exceed your revenues. So how do you plan on addressing that gap? Will you do it with grants, or can you address that?
So traditionally parts of the CED department have been just general funded. And what's that really looking at is our development user fees. And so council in the past has chosen to subsidize some of those development user fees in order to make development more affordable. And so there is that gap in order to ensure that we're still receiving development within Modesto. We're going to go through our comprehensive fees task force, where council is going to have the decision to kind of see how much we would like to subsidize this moving forward. And we'll see if there will be a lesser gap after that as well. So right now, this would be just funded by our traditional general fund.
Okay, and did I miss a section in your report that you referenced, because the various state grants that you receive? Did you have a slide on that?
I did. So one of our divisions, which is our community development division, is completely grant funded and funded by our community facilities districts.
Okay.
And so they have a indirect rate that actually has full cost recovery for them each year. And so although the grants are diminishing, we're still fine in that division, but we are watching it closely if we're going to fill vacant positions and what that looks like.
Some of the grants you have, are they multi-funded? I mean, multi-yearly, they pay in more than 1 year?
Yes, so we're seeing that all of our annual grants are still slated on the budgets in both the state and federal level.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. How many do you have on your staff for economic development?
I have 6 full-time staff in economic development.
And you're in the process of hiring a economic development manager, correct?
Correct.
You mentioned that, I assume this last year, we have 203 new jobs. Do you does your department track on how many jobs that are lost in the city?
We have not currently been, no.
Okay. In your economic development department, are you targeting specific businesses to come to Modesto? Meaning, we would maybe focus on jobs that are providing living wage or skilled labor jobs. What kind of market are you targeting?
So I think it's both. So it's really to help serve the needs of our community. So we need to ensure that we're recruiting for those job generation businesses to have that livable wage. And so to do that, we're reaching out specifically to different industries that are looking to grow within California. We're also kind of mapping out what sites we have available for them as well. And so it's kind of hand in hand to ensure we have sites available for those industries that are looking to come in. From a retail standpoint, we are, looking at different, gaps in our current retail market and trying to bring those things in as well. So we're working on both the commercial retail and industrial side.
On industrial inventory, how much industrial inventory do we have available to bring in skilled labor employer jobs?
So in our current city limits, we have very few sites available. I could probably name 3 that would be able to bring in more jobs. And so I think that's an essential part is we're kind of going through another of our strategic plan initiatives of our general plan and looking for opportunities and future growth for Modesto as well.
So really, we do not have industrial land.
Correct.
How many permits were taken out this last year for industrial?
We only had 3.
Only 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we track wages, those 203 new jobs? Do we somehow track what the wages are? I mean, I would like to see us pursue the $50 to $60 an hour so that they can afford to buy the $400,000 and $500,000 houses. Do we track those wages?
We partner with Workforce Development, which we're able to gather that information. I will speak to the 203 jobs addressed there. It was primarily due to Vallarta markets. And so they weren't the $50 to $60 paying jobs, but we are tracking, or looking for opportunities for those as well.
And those are full-time jobs or part-time jobs?
It was a variety of both.
A variety of both? Do you know if they offer Vallarta, if they offer benefits in retirement?
I'd have to double check with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Being on the comprehensive fee task force, I think 3 different times over the last 15 years, I'm concerned about us raising our fees. And and I don't recall, do we project what a new project is going to benefit the city in the way of revenue, so that that task force can look at, if we lower the fees here, actually it's going to generate revenue that will really cover the fees down the road? Do we look at that?
I think that's a great suggestion. I don't believe that we look at it for all types.
remember, yeah.
We do a comparison. So kind of what our fees are compared to our neighboring cities, but I think that's a great
Yeah,
suggestion.
I think it'd be good for the committee to really look at that. So if, it's hard to say, well, we need to raise fees because it cover our costs. However, if we know that a particular project is going to bring in X number of revenue over a 10-year period, then it's easy to say, okay, we need to keep our fees lower, or we need to cut here to help bring in more businesses and development into our area. But anyway, I think it'd be something to look at. Any other, any from the council members or mayor? Go ahead, Chris, Ricky.
So, in terms of the homeless stuff we're doing, it says we got 2 sites with 18 units. It seems, I'd like to see more. What are the thoughts on like trying to buff that up a little bit? Because while I know that we've got a reduction in our point in time count, I'm concerned because that day we did that point in time count, it was super foggy, and like the people that I talked to that did it said that they couldn't find people. So I really don't like the stat that day, and I don't like point in time counts, period, for this very reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're constantly looking for new bridge housing sites to create more bridge housing units. Community development's been really working really closely with Sonia and her team to try to really revisit our bridge housing RFP that we had in the beginning, and really kind of soliciting from the community again of other potential sites. So we're trying to look at that and then try to think of outside the box ways to create more units of bridge housing.
I think one of the ways that we should consider is changing the ordinance, or I don't know, whatever we voted on, I don't know, whatever you call that, but whatever we voted on that requires us to get the land for free, we may want to invest in some land so that we can build what we want rather than trying to scrap 5 units here, 10 units there. My goal is to actually, we actually want to solve the problem, right? And so I know that every unit we add helps, but we got just a big problem with it right now. And I think we need to be careful about relying on the numbers from the point in time count as our success, because I'm not sure how real those numbers are. Also, on the affordable housing stuff, I wanted to see if we're in this budget, if we are finding ways to partner financially with the private sector to build more affordable housing. I know that, for example, STEP has some good stuff that they're doing, and that your department is already coordinating with them on. But I'm wondering if the city has ways of kind of injecting more energy or more just finding ways to help them make these things happen faster, because they're doing a good job of creating ideas to fill that missing middle in the housing market that we have here. We're at kind of $200,000 to $250,000 sweet spot that people could actually afford. I'm looking for ways that we can help them do that.
Great suggestions. We do partner very closely with STEP and looking for different outside the box, including manufactured housing with STEP. We are also working with community members on the attainable housing. They currently have a site that they're vetting right now, which is kind of having that 80 to 100% AMI. And then the Stanislaus Community Foundation's actually launching more of a focus group again regarding the housing and really helping to help address that missing middle. So yes, we do partner with our private community and are always looking for more ways to.
Awesome. And I had some questions about the strategic plan in terms of what we're doing, in terms of downtown development, placemaking and all that. But your presentation was so good, I'm not going to ask them.
She's one step ahead of you.
She got me.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll open up to the public. Any public? Seeing none, bring it back to committee members' final comments. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, there she is. No, it's okay.
Sit down.
I just looked up and you were gone. Thank you again for your presentation, Jessica. I really believe that once we hire our new economic development manager, that they take the approach that Councilman Wright mentioned, because I think he's spot on. We need to look at, we're competing with other cities. So we need to develop a business plan to be competitive, to bring businesses that, are economic, or that are not only economically sound, but environmentally sound, that create skilled labor paying jobs, and be able to look at incentives, tax incentives to bring them here, knowing that on the back end, we're going to collect it on Measure H monies, because if they're making those $50 an hour jobs, that's $120,000 a year roughly before taxes. They can then have that disposable income to be able to buy goods and services in the city. So over time, we can pick it up on the back end. And I think that should be a discussion at some point, maybe with the council, on our thoughts about being aggressive and pursuing that. And I think also Councilman Ricky was spot on with regards to the bridge housing, expanding the scope. I know that there's been opportunities where the city, if the scope of the financing was broader, to include perhaps purchasing land and then bringing in a partner to manage that, or they don't have the kind of money to put down on the real estate, the land. Maybe we ought to take a look at some point, having a discussion of expanding the scope of bridge housing to include more options that allow us to partner with those nonprofits in our city. So again, two good points by two good council members, and appreciate that. Go ahead.
May I ask a question during comments?
Sure.
Thank you. Jessica, you alluded and you addressed the fact that you and your team actively engage in recruitment of corporations and businesses to bring into Modesto. And we have an Amazon coming to us soon, and that's delightful. How many employees is that going to bring? And one question, and then second to that, when a company of their status and bandwidth with employees, what type of ripple effect does that have in a community, and does that bring in additional business into a town? And the third and final question is, are you actively speaking to employers, businesses, and companies that see great potential in Modesto and are considering coming here that hasn't been made public as of yet?
That's a good question.
Okay.
Can't give out all the secrets.
Right.
So for the Amazon employees, I'm going to have to get that information and get back to you. But traditionally, when we see employees come for a new business, is we know how much the employees make and then how much potentially they could spend at other businesses around there and in Modesto. And so yes, there's a residual effect by bringing in new business, not only to add employees, the employees spend, but then you're also right that when people know, oh, Amazon's going here, people are looking for other areas along now the Kiernan corridor to then have a similar type business there. So one business isn't ahead of them. So it does create some more attraction. Yes, we are talking to other businesses that do want to come to Modesto, and it's just finding that matchmaking. So where's the right site for the businesses to come? So I hope there will be some more exciting announcements in the near future.
And might some of those businesses be interested on 6th Road?
Yes.
Yay. Thank you.
So you're welcome.
Any comments from, Mayor, you have any comments? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm grateful that you brought up the development potentially with the foundation. I had a fairly lengthy meeting this morning, and that sounds like some really creative efforts that sound very promising to me regarding middle housing and also business opportunities for our residents. Really looking forward to hearing more about that as that develops in the future. My other comment is, as I am throughout the community, you have a very strong reputation in the community as a brilliant leader. So thank you for your service and keep it up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. I think my only comment, being the last comment, hopefully here, is that bridge housing is important, but there's a whole pipeline of housing that's really important. And the other one is workforce housing. Workforce housing really helps with bridge housing, because bridge housing is just a stepping stone to workforce housing. So I think it's important that we really look at workforce housing, where individuals that do have a full-time job can move into workforce housing without having to have subsidy from the city or from the government in housing. So I think that's another piece. I think you're looking at that, and that's an important piece to really help with our bridge housing. Once we get that in place, where we can keep moving people through the housing process, it really opens up for not only our shelters, but our bridge housing and so on and everything. Your staff and you are doing a great job. Just keep up the good work.
Great,
Thank you. Okay, next is the Engineering Service Department, and Toby Wells. Welcome, Toby.
Good evening, Chair Wright, members of the Finance Committee, Mayor, and Council. My pleasure this evening to present on our budget for engineering services. So our department continues to grow a little bit. And so our 5 divisions that we have here, along with our administration, so our land development engineering, construction administration, surveying, the transportation engineering design group, referred to here. Important to note the addition of the traffic operations engineering group. It came over from Public Works, so we refer to them as the toe of TED. And then lastly, our parks planning and development group that helped deliver our parks projects. All in all, 51 total FTEs. And again, the biggest change there is the 3 employees that came over from the Public Works Department. And we do have 2 Measure H employees in the PPD, the parks planning. You see our change over time, for the most part, just the addition of the different divisions that have come over from our team. A little bit of difference you'll see on the light gray there of the construction administration. Really, it's just a separation of the surveying to its own division from construction and administration. And then the blue there on the last column for 26-27 is those 3 traffic operations engineering folks that came over from Public Works. So this is the capital improvement budget. So ultimately, the revenues and expenditures are driven by project delivery. So it's just a matter of what projects are being constructed and where the revenues are coming from those funding sources. So for example, a Measure L project would be the revenue, and the expenditure would be the cost of that project. Here's the general fund expenditures, and you can see kind of the increase in fiscal year 25-26, primarily driven by the addition of the Parks Planning Group when they came over as it being a general funded opportunity, as well as our land development team, which is in the general fund. And as we've talked about this evening, the funds from developer fees pays for a portion of those expenses for land development. And lastly, our Measure H, again, 2 employees that we have in the Measure H category. As part of the strategic plan, really our focus is on delivering projects. And so our 2 areas within the strategic plan are Goal B, Strategy 4, for awarding and start construction on 3 major parks projects. As we all know, the project currently known as Cesar Chavez, under construction, nearing completion, MLK Park, well underway, in the Virginia Corridor expansion over Standiford, all under construction and making very good progress. And then under the Goal D, this is finalizing for major projects and highlighting 3 of the other big projects. So Scenic Drive, we are very near completion. The Scenic Drive project, we've all heard about it, but my tattoo, the cost of progress is some minor disruptions to get ultimate and better improvements. So 9th Street, same under construction, and then happy to see the Dryden Clubhouse all under construction. So making good progress. Pardon our dust. I know we've all heard the complaints, but we are making some good progress within the community of improving our infrastructure and delivering on the promises that we made to this community with Measure L and Measure H. And highlighting a couple items that were highlighted earlier on the Measure H adjustments. So the first item there is the Parks Priority preventive and deferred maintenance. So $1.6 million there to deliver 2 more playgrounds, as well as continue our efforts on deferred maintenance across the community. And then highlighting the Awesome Spot. So $3 million will allow for the completion of the Phase 1. That will give a fully functional Phase 1 park and playground. In addition, what we're offering here is the opportunity for a program that will be a dollar-for-dollar match to the fundraising efforts going forward, so that in future years we'll be able to commit to and allow the private team that is working on this project to raise those funds with a city match to be able to try and get to the Phase 2 project. That would be up to $1.9 million of the total cost of an additional $3.8. So that's the idea of trying to put the real money in the ground this year, within this fiscal year, and at the same time encourage our community and development partners to step up their game to match those funds so we can get the full project delivered sooner rather than later. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Toby. Any questions from the committee members? Seeing none, I'll open up to the council members. Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead,
What
Mayor.
does Phase 1 look like at the Awesome Spot when that's completed?
Yeah, so Phase 1 is in essence the small children playground. So that's the first big portion of it, would have that playground fully functional, and the interpretive wall and several of those first components of the program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll open up to the public. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, bring it back to committee for final comments. Any committee members, final comments?
Just thank you for all the work that you do for the city.
You're welcome.
Great. Council members?
Yes, I appreciate all the advice and information that you give us so that we're prepared when we serve on many commissions and boards throughout the community. It's really helpful, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
And my only comment is that I'm really impressed on Scenic Avenue where we've changed the dimensions and everything, how that flows around that corner there. Every time I go through there, which is probably 2 or 3 times a day, I can really tell that's really going to hopefully stop any accidents from happening. And my hat's off to you. And also at the corner of intersection of Scenic and Oakdale Road, making a left-hand turn from Scenic onto Oakdale has always been real tight in there in the way you put the turn lane westbound off of Scenic, turning onto Oakdale, and how you've opened that up. I've always heard complaints about that area, and now it's looking like it's going to really work out nice. Thank you very much. Councilmember?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Toby, for you and your team. You guys deal with immensely large projects. They're complicated. They're very high-level engineering, techie kind of projects. And you and your team have done an excellent job at taking these projects and making it understood to the general public, and that's not easy to do. In particular, you did that really well with the 99 Sanford Interchange project, where you presented a concept and took a lot of diverse public feedback. And you were open to that feedback, and you and your team, together with the public, came up with a plan that worked for everyone. And that wasn't done overnight, and it was not done without any pain, but we're at a really good place, and that's attributed to you and your team's professionalism and call to service. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Toby. I already opened up to the public. Okay, we're done. Thank you. You're done
I
with you.
just wanted to thank Toby. on
Okay,
what-
go ahead.
I personally wanted to thank Toby. You know, he's been in my district many times, meeting with not only my advisory committee, but Lakewood neighborhood, and then going out to White Cliff on a Sunday late afternoon. That's really going beyond the call of duty, and I just really appreciate you doing that.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Next up is Public Works. And then we'll do Human Resource Department, and then we're going to call it an evening. This is FYI.
Sounds good.
Depends on Public Works.
Yeah.
How-
How fast or slow he
I'll
goes.
try not to keep us here till 11. So, Chair Wright, committee members, Mayor, and Council, Patrick Crowley, Interim Director for Public Works. So, go through Public Works. So, there's 9 divisions, including administration and Public Works. This just gives a high-level functional layout of our business, transportation, integrated or solid waste, public works buildings or city buildings, facilities and parking structures, our fleet maintenance management, and then our urban forestry. So then this is the org chart. There's just short of 230 full-time employees and 30 to 50 part-times flexible throughout the year based on needs. And then it's broken down into the actual divisions. Transportation has our streets team, which includes asphalt, curb, gutter, sidewalks, which is concrete, as well as our traffic ops team, which does all the signage markings, lane markings and stuff like that, as well as our airport division. Then our electrical division does a lot of everything, maintaining street signals, traffic lights, sidewalks for general lighting, as well as building infrastructure for the electrical. Our solid waste integrated waste management is dealing with our waste haulers, the solid waste recycling. They do code enforcement for that. We have a blight abatement team, and then one of the very few cities within the state that has our own owned and operated compost facilities, and is dealing with all of the city-owned buildings. Our parking has 3 parking structures, 4 paid surface lots, 3 other surface lots that are no cost. Then our fleet services deals with all of the management of our city fleet, including our contracts with the 5 fire districts, as well as the Stan RTA for the public transit for the county. Green waste deals with sweeping of the streets, our leaf collection, and as well as picking up bulk green waste from the streets, and then finalizing with our urban forestry team. Underneath forestry, as well as our blight, we have Measure H staff that are in there. 5 for the blight team and 8 are in forestry. This is just a different look over time, pretty consistent for the staffing model. And again, we had, based on the advantage of the community giving us Measure H, we had some additional staff assigned to our forestry department as well as our blight abatement team. Let's see. So part of the increase that you see in the fleet management is due almost entirely to Stan RTA for the busing. We started at 65 buses, and we're up to about 150 now. And then we are consistent with using third-party contractors to take the peak loads off of that. And then our Measure H also was for our integrated waste team with the blight abatement. And then transportation group has relatively been flat, again, using third-party contractors to help augment that load. Then we go into our revenue and expenses. For surface transportation, basically it's revenue neutral. The revenues come from our gas tax, SB1, some franchise fees, augmented with some Measure H, general fund. Those are all used to fund that. And again, we spend some of the Measure H to augment that team with third-party support for some of our concrete work, as well as our for curb gutters and sidewalks, most of the concrete work. And then you'll see a slight increase in 23-24. We added a second team for in-house to manage that workload. And then most of the increase, again, just like everybody else, was MOUs for staff costs, as well as a lot of this group material is petroleum-based, and the cost for material continues to increase over time. This is our fleet management. So maintaining all of the infrastructure for the city, as well as transit and the 5 fire districts that we support. So going through there, there's a big increase in costs or revenues, but that was a transition based on Stan RTA being developed, some more buses there, some ISFs, again, for the districts that we support. We also increased staffing for the transit from going from 65 buses to 150 buses. So there was an increase in staffing, which goes along with a lot of those costs. Part of the reason that you see some deficits in the funding is because currently this ISF model is based on 2 years in arrear. We're working with the budget office to revamp how the funding source for this ISF is based on, so that we can avoid some of those historical costs and have to make up with offset of the negative balance with general fund. Our airport division, basically this is, we project revenues, so you'll see that some of the expenses, we had some offsets in actual revenues coming in. Staff has been spending a lot of time looking at standardizations, moving forward, evaluating other business opportunities. As an example, we now have our 3rd flight school, so there's other revenue opportunities on the horizon for this. Then our solid waste. The big change in 24-25 was the closing of the waste to energy facility, so that we got a large influx in funding for that. Some of the other revenue streams are some of the landfills, Gear Road, Carpenter, managing of those, as well as our compost site. So we provide composting for the community for that. And again, these are some of the additional expenses is because we had a large increase in disposal costs with the spoils going to landfill instead of being able to be composted. Our green waste team is, again, this is an area where Measure H helped. The forestry is funded through this, so some of the Measure H helped balance this. This historically, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been running in a deficit. And then so we use the proceeds at the end of the year to augment the budget to cover that gap. Then our storm drain, again, this is one of those ones that we balance the budget with the revenues and expenses. This primarily is the street sweeping and the leaf collection, working with our utilities department to help with flood controls and organics going into the drain system. Our parking team, as you can see, this is also an ISF. The revenues need to be reevaluated. We'll come back to council with some fees. The fees are based on a 2017 structure. We had a large increase in costs based on upgrading the the park system, the parking access revenue control system. So to bring that modernization into the parking world from a 14-year-old computer. Then our facilities, you'll see a slight change in revenue versus expenditures. Part of this is due to, as you saw from our engineering group, several sites were closed for reconstruction. Transit Center had a major $5 million renovation. We had projected revenues based on historical content of those facilities having the need for repairs. Right now, Maddox Youth Center has been closed. Ken Kennedy Community Center is closed, so that revenue stream is not coming in for those revenue sources. Our Measure H, again, this is mostly staffing costs, so that's on our two teams, the blight abatement and our forestry team that have that with additional staffing. So that's basically those costs. We have two primary strategic plan elements for the department. Measure our Goal B, mostly this falls underneath our forestry department and our blight abatement. Again, that's where the staffing is. So reforestation of the community, dealing with proper urban forestry management. And then we're in the middle of updating our ordinance for our municipal code to have a revamped policy for city trees. And then our blight abatement team dealing with community issues. A direct result of having Measure H, we went from a 15-day turnaround to an average of a 3-day turnaround from the community notifying us to us being able to go out and address the needs. The other primary goal for the department is D, for infrastructure. We're wrapping up our study for the airport for growth opportunities, to see what potentials are there for the community, as well as working with our federal partners to construct a new tower up to the side of the airfield, facing away from the sun instead of into the sun in a higher building. But there's some work that the city needs to do for what's called an ALP, so it's a plan of land use that we're working on with the FAA to do that, and then our diverting waste from the landfills, updating the municipal code to address some of those. Part of that is directly impacted by the waste to energy facility closure. Then continuing with Measure D, our pavement team, our streets team, right now, our goal is to increase the pavement condition index up to 70. That's in concert with, again, our engineering team, and then our slurry program, which is an average. We went from 110 lane miles every year with the increase of the team up to 169 last year. And then our curb, gutter, and sidewalk, that's our concrete teams, reducing our backlog of work orders 350 to 400 in assessments, some additional square footage that we've been able to complete annually. Then we don't have any Measure H requests. We do have two non-Measure H. One is for additional cameras out at the airport to increase safety and compliance issues, as well as a truck for our solid waste compost site. And with then we move into our fleet program. Over the years, we've had lots of vehicles. Right now, we have a list of about 420 that's been pre-approved, breakdown of where they are. We'll be coming back to council soon for some more expenditures on these approved. Next year, we have 132 vehicles that are being recommended that have either met the age or mileage or both. They're funded out of the Fleet Replacement Fund. And these are specific to replacement units, and any new ads that will be required will come back to committee. And then that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members? Go ahead, Nick.
On slide 5, how does revenues zero out expenditures? How did that happen?
Yeah, so for this one, it's based on the reserves that are in there. So we've got some reserves in there from the gas tax funds, from SB1 funds, from franchise fees over the years. And so the revenue in there is based on what we're estimating to get for next year, and the rest of it comes from the reserves within that fund.
I've never seen anything like that. Wow.
Yeah, it's just how we're showing the enterprise funds for some of them where we've got those reserve balances.
Creative financing.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay,
Rosa,
thank
good.
you. Just call me Rosa. I have waste questions. Start with the solid waste. How has the closing of Cavanta, and I know that Cavanta was a city-county relationship with them, but how has that impacted the city of Modesto fiscally?
That's part of the increased cost for what we call tipping fees. So when we go to a landfill versus spending that to create energy, it has to now go into the ground. So what we can't recycle, repurpose, or turn into compost ends up going into the landfill. So that impact of those additional costs, as well as the fact of getting it to the landfill sites or the transfer stations.
So can you put numbers to what you just said?
I will have to get back to you on those exact numbers.
I'd appreciate it. And then my other waste question is on green waste, and I'll wait for a second. Go ahead. Okay, thank you. So your for public works, green waste revenue and expenses, specifically for your green waste as associated with urban forestry, your 24-25 actuals were approximately 400,000 to 500,000 more than your proposed 26-27 revenues. Why was that? Why did we ask for less money for our forestry? Or am I reading it inaccurately? So if you go to slide 9.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's the one that's on there. Under fiscal year 24-25, for revenues, we have $7,759,000, and proposed for fiscal year 26-27, we have less.
I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay. All right. So if you could get back to me on that,
Do you have any answer?
Steve, you want to speak to that?
Well, I just want to clarify the question. So you're asking on this one for green waste, which is, again, it's a mixture of things. It's not just forestry. There's other things in there. So is your question...
Specific to forestry. So good distinction.
Yeah.
So of maybe someone could tell us of these numbers, what is specific to forestry?
All right, so we're pulling up right now. If you have another question, we'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Again, specific to forestry, you did mention that Measure H funding went to forestry staff. Do you know if the majority of Measure H funding went to exclusively to forestry staff, or did some of it also go to other areas in forestry, like for equipment or trimming of trees, or?
Some of it went to equipment. We also have third-party vendors that support the city in achieving some of those goals. So we have contracts with a couple of arborist companies that augment our in-house staff.
Okay. So perhaps when you come back, you could give us a clearer understanding of forestry's revenues and expenditures.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mike, a couple of questions real quick and some good comments. On your tree forestry contractors, how many contractors do we have? We have 2 or 3?
Public Works has 2, and then our engineering group has 1.
And are they full-time contractors or out 5 days a week for the City of Modesto, or are they on call as needed?
The on-call as needed.
Okay, and we call them because we get behind, or?
Yes, so we started when the program, like program pruning and stump removal are the 2 agreements that Public Works holds. So in order to achieve our goals, we're balancing the cost of having a third party to get us back to a steady state versus having in-house staff that are 30-year commitments. So we use that. We've gone down from a 13-year pruning cycle to right now it's a roughly 8.2 years. So we're making progress. And then for stump removal, we went from hundreds to over 1,000 with the fact that we've augmented in-house with the third party.
And how long do you think we'll need a third party to us to get to where we should be so we don't need a third party? Have any idea?
It depends on what cycle we want to get to. If we go to 7-year, or what we're working on is getting to the ISA standard of about 6 years, and what is that value to the city versus the cost of those services. We feel that once we get to a steady state, that we are managing our urban forestry diligently, then we can reduce the fact that we'd have to have third parties.
So you think about the next 2 years or 3 years?
Probably 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, okay. And then second, or last thing on the blight, the Go Modesto Act is really great. My wife loves it. I think she's posting something every day. She goes out looking for things to post, and then within a couple hours, it's all taken care of. So
tell her we said thank you.
You're making her happy. But I think the Go Modesto app is really something great that we're using for our community to really show our residents that we do care about our community, and we're on top of getting things taken care of. I noticed there's not as much graffiti like there used to be 5 years ago. There's not as much trash like there used to be 5 years ago, and everything is just really working great with that Go Modesto app. Any comments from council members or mayor? No? Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
To answer your question, Councilmember Scooty Braden, so out of that total amount that was in the Green Waste Fund, so out of that 11.1 million, 7.6 million of it is to forestry out of that expense total. So the reason you're seeing that variance there in terms of the Green Waste Fund, the 7.3 in revenues versus the 11.1 in expenses, the variance is really covered by the solid waste fund. That all rolls up into the solid waste fund. So it's not that there's a negative balance or anything. This is a sub-fund of the solid waste fund. So that discrepancy there is covered by the solid waste funds. It's just a sub-fund of the solid waste funds. They all roll up in together. Like our surface transportation funds, those have different sub-funds. There's Measure L, SB1, gas tax. They all roll up into the surface transportation funds.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So bring it, no public comment? Yes, go ahead, Juan.
I'm interested to know, Chair, if we have a current PCI for the pavement condition index, and how much money would cost to meet the 70 or greater for the city.
We will come back.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the committee. Any final closing remarks from anyone? If not, seeing the time, I think we're going to adjourn the meeting. So this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30.